up?
Hello.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on again.
No problem.
Good to have you on.
It's not showing your picture at all. I'm trying to figure out why in the...
I just have the text and no picture. So yeah.
I don't have that at all. I have just...
Oh, you have
Managed.
hidden non-video participants are hidden.
Yeah, that's probably it.
You
There
just
we
have to
go. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah,
Because
turn on the. Yeah, I have that too. When I have bigger meetings, you don't want to have a lot of people that don't have their.
Yeah, I did that the
so,
other day for a meeting I was doing, and I forgot to turn it back. So, Les, thanks for coming on, man. This isn't your wheelhouse.
Well, it's always good to have you on, Les. Always.
Oh yeah, this is it's actually kind of convenient because I have used the Rhennee quite a bit in my campaign.
Oh, good. I've only touched them a little bit, so they're...
Mystical, I know you're looking. You got another show. Coco, what's up? Awesome.
Let me turn on Twitch as well.
Let me get out my shout out. Shout outs to everyone going. How you doing, Courtney?
Oh, I need to log into chat.
Sound is good. Please tell me sound
exactly.
check, sound check, sound check.
Mute. There we go.
You're mute.
No, I wanted to mute the Twitch so I didn't get
Yeah, always, yeah.
Yeah. Get the echo.
the sense around experience.
Yep.
Lord Dave, good to see you. Doing good. Just another crazy busy work week. So, getting stuff done. Man, I had like a 20-minute long meeting with Chuck on the phone today, and I forgot to ask him to get me a new ad.
Along the arc of
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What's up, Greg? How can that be?
Easy to say that there is dark and there is light. It is too easy to say that there are two sides to every coin. The reality is far worse. For law flirts with tyranny. Chaos invites freedom.
This will be the last week for a while that only has 3 streams.
Good, except suffering.
After this, we got a lot of special events.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday, the fundraiser.
For they know nothing but self.
This is the last one.
The Codex Infernum and the Codex Exaltum. 2 source books that bring in-depth knowledge about beings of all dispositions, from the farthest reaches of the heavens to the darkest depths of wretchedness. Both of these titles come with new, full-color art, new creatures,
got some
new
good
powers,
fun announcements,
and a multitude of information providing lore, backgrounds, names.
I just type it in top list so that you're not the last. Yes, you go pop all the way back up in the order
These
Discord.
incredible tomes are filled with demons,
Michael.
devils,
Yeah, more or
and
less.
sorcerers,
Less is more tonight.
unleashing the
What's
power
up,
I'm
Patrick?
certainly
of
here.
evil, law, and chaos on your table.
Awesome.
The Codices Infernum and Exaltum, bringing creatures hallowed and profane into your adventure.
Man.
Pledge and share
I have
today.
shout outs like everywhere. Oh gosh. There we go.
Troll Lord Games. Join the fray.
Join the fray. Oh, it's 6:53. We're good. I feel weirdly ahead of schedule. What's up, Bill Naval?
That's good.
Yeah.
keep that feeling. Yep.
Angry Dave.
Yeah, try to sustain that momentum, because once we go
Exactly.
live, we're gonna
Yeah.
go what?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Pound my coffee. Thanks, Patrick, for the resub. 41 months. Woo! Almost there. Cool. 24 logos up. Rocking and rolling. Let's see what we got here. Hopefully I fixed this. I think I did. Yes, I did. Woohoo! Okay. Just something. Not a lot of pictures there. Yeah, that's funny, Mike. 44 year. And our Ed Greenwood seminar the time got changed 3 times. Well, actually twice
yeah.
to 3 different times. Yeah.
Okay, I got my time set today. I got an email.
Yeah, it's just because somehow someone put Ed in a game from 1 to 4 that exact time. So on Friday. So
Yeah, mine was set Friday at 4 o'clock, 4 p.m.
Yeah, which one's that?
My seminar, my photography seminar set at Friday at 4 o'clock.
That's great. That's the same time as the Ed seminar now.
Okay.
Josh!
Well, that was my only requirement, was that don't set it at the
Yes.
same time I have my other seminars.
Anna's seminar
Yep.
with Ed is the exact.
Well, we can all put them together in one
Same
long and have a
time.
6-hour seminar then.
Oh,
A whole day with just me and Ed and Jay and
yeah,
others.
24-hour seminar.
Yeah. We go in like 2 hours, and then we have half an hour or 20 minutes break, and then we go another 2 hours.
And then before too long, you can have semester-long
glad you told me.
seminars.
Yep.
Duh! I get to
Yep.
blame him on this. He changed ours
Yep.
twice.
Okay. Yep.
I blame Josh. Live! Coming live. All right. Good evening, and it's another week. How's everyone
Yep.
doing? Anna and Les on tonight. How are you both doing? Good?
Hey, gang.
Good. Yep.
What's up, Naz? Gonna be a fun
Hello.
discussion. Let's talk about something first. Okay, I think most of us probably know.
Yes.
I'll bring this up, Les, the thing that you shared with me, which is a different little perspective. So here we go. So Janelle Jacquet's passed today, right?
Yep. Or
Yeah.
yesterday. I'm not.
Yeah.
Very recently. So yeah.
So a legend, did a ton of stuff. One of my favorite adventures of all time, Dark Tower.
Yep.
Caverns of Thracia. I
She
know.
did a lot of illustrations too. Dragon Mountain.
Egg
She
of the
did
Phoenix.
yeah,
a
Mos
lot of-
Eisley map I saw someone
Yeah.
posted that she did for Star Wars. That was kind of awesome looking, and so yeah.
Yep. So Les, where'd you find this? Everything. I
There's
know-
a gentleman on YouTube called Joe the Lawyer who was one of the people who kickstarted the project. This was from a Goodman Games compilation, their Judges Guild Collections Volume 2, the big hardbacks that collected everything pretty much. This has Caverns of Thracia, Dark Tower, the Treasure Map book, It has a bunch of essays by Janelle. It has the first several issues of Dungeoneer. It
Was it
has maps
Judges
and
Guild
illustration.
Collection #2, you said?
Yes, exactly, which I
Okay,
believe is
thank you.
sold out
Yep.
now.
Mm-hmm. It might
But
be possible to get a PDF somewhere, or if you're
Yeah.
lucky on somewhere. I'll just put that in the name, we'll see. Yeah.
it's really a
drive-through or
cool
something.
collection, and I saw that article, which is of course referring to the Greyhawk supplement for OD&D,
Right.
and yeah, it made me smile.
Well, that's
Yeah,
I appreciate you
Janelle
sharing
was a
it.
major. Janelle was. I mentioned this on my own Discord today, and I mentioned it in a few places. Janelle was one of those people, probably along with Rob Kuntz and Gary Gygax, who had the most influence on my thinking about how I game and about game
Oh,
design
wow.
and dungeon and adventure design. So
Mhm.
that this one hit hard, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
I never had the pleasure of playing with her or meeting her, but her influence is definitely felt.
Yeah, I met her twice at GaryCon. She had seminars there, and it was fantastic. One was the old TSR stuff. They talked about old and showed old artwork and stuff, and the other one was some adventure world building design and stuff that was really cool too. So, yep.
Yeah. So it's sad, and
Yep.
we're losing more and more of the
Yep.
old timers in the community. Just going back,
Yep.
but to some of the works, just like Len, the works will be there forever, which is great. So
Mm-hmm.
Dark Tower will be on my wall of fame as long as I'm alive. So
Yep.
that'll be just a fantastic memory there. So Les, thank you for sharing that with us. That you
No
found
problem,
this
man.
about learned in Greyhawk, which is a really a cool thing to share. So. All right, sad times, absolutely, a ton of things. All right, so Rhennee, I don't even know I pronounce it Rhennee. I've always done it from day one, Rhennee, the Rhennee. I don't know. Questions are already coming up in chat, like where does the name come from? That's a good question. No idea. I don't know.
I think we can tap on some speculation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to the Rhennee, a lot of the stuff that we're going to have to do is speculation and piecing things together, and probably some projection of our own invention onto the Rhennee, because they're left deliberately. There's a lot of stuff about their history and culture that's left deliberately ambiguous. I think
so true. It was like they didn't know how to expand upon, because I think they may have thought, man, this is really close to the real life, and then they may have pulled, I don't know, and pulled back.
I think that there's a reason for that, though, and I think we'll get into that. I think we'll get into that in a little while.
All right, that sounds good.
I have some thoughts on that.
So, original memories for me. I think it's great. It's Free State Greyhawk box set.
Yep.
For me, which is like, and I've been playing. This is 1989, right? And let me flip to that. 1989 comes. What's up there, Jeremy? Like I said, we got to give away classic D&D reprint exclamation point drawing that's running. So, wasn't Francois Forteville talking to Gygax about a roaming group? Yeah, I believe so. So. And maybe it is Rhennee is a French name for, I don't know, or it's an amalgam of names.
It might be. They're using he's using French titles for dukedom, duchy.
True.
For instance, so there are precedent for using French stuff in there too. Yeah.
So, if I recall, though, 1989 comes and the Free Secret Rock box set comes out, but this book is before that, right?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, the Rhennee come up in the gold box.
Okay, they do come. They come up in the 83.
They seem to be part of the Greyhawk story since the earliest days. So they any inkling, were they part of Greyhawk, of Gary's personal campaign? Do we have any records before published Greyhawk stuff?
I get the sense, and this will come up when we discuss one of the little treasures that I dug up, that there were I won't use, and I'm going to clarify in advance. I'm
Mhm.
going to use the more neutral terms Roma or Romani
Okay.
Much
to describe
preferred.
the real
Yep.
world
Mhm.
people.
Yep.
There were examples of Romani bands in Greyhawk and D&D before, certainly before the Vistani and with the Rhennee,
Mhm. Yep.
right?
But
Um,
I can understand that, because to have people that are not living in one place, that are actually traveling from location to location, nomadic or semi-nomadic, that is interesting in a fantasy setting. So it's something that I think has its place. So yeah.
Yeah.
and
Go ahead.
sorry, go on.
No. Absolutely. I was just going to do a personal anecdote. Go ahead. Absolutely.
In the with the box set, it introduces the idea that you have these. I mean, the box set had already discussed the idea that the early Flan had been nomadic, but of
Yeah.
course, then that changes
Mm-hmm.
once the Aerdy and Sewell come in.
Yeah.
What you wind up seeing in the development here, is it mentions that they're there and they're from another world, or they
Yeah.
claim to be from another plane of existence.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really sketchy. They may not even remember where they came from originally.
Well,
And
can the other
they're
ones be sure of that? Meaning it's
exactly,
all
and
myth and legend once it goes back more than 100 generations.
oh yeah, but more so, I think if you just suddenly pop up on a continent
Oh yeah.
from
Mm-hmm.
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so this allows a kind of retconning where some of those Romani style groups that you had previously, those itinerant groups that exist in the Flanes's present, could be retconned into being Rhennee or Atloy.
That's good point. Yeah.
Okay.
And it actually mentions specifically, Jay, you and I were talking about this the other day, that originally they traveled in their caravans, but when they first arrived, but they found the land so dangerous that that the majority of them took to the waterways.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
from the Gold Box.
Okay. So well, that's good to know. So for me, my personal anecdote was I never over delved into the 83 box set like I should have, because I always was an 80 user. And so when I got the 83, I'm like, oh, it's very similar to 80. I'm not going to, sorry, there's some stuff I missed.
Oh,
Yeah.
I always did the opposite. Every time there was something new, I stopped reading the old and dive
Okay.
in and digested that and moved forward, so to speak, all the time.
That's cool.
Or go back and read both
Yeah.
of them and try to figure out how they fit together, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
some good questions out there. So we don't know where the name comes from. It's probably a French, as we're thinking a French derivation, right?
I'm thinking it's that or okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here, right?
Okay.
But of course, around the same time that they're introduced, a little bbit later, when Gygax does the Sigurd novels, there's a piece in November 1984's Polyhedron, the RPGA newsletter, where he's discussing the Sigurd books, and this is where you get him discussing how they're set on Yarth, and he goes through the whole Oath, Yarth, Aerth, Urth, Aerth
Oh my gosh.
thing. So the idea is that you have these parallel, and he discussed this before. It comes up sort of in the Gord novels. The idea that you have these worlds that exist on a spectrum from our world, which is technologically based, to Oath, which is where magic is more powerful, right? And it's a spectrum. And of course, later he developed Aerth when he developed his own game, right?
Yep.
The Epic of Aerth, rather. And that one's closer to Europe. And I get the feeling that if you were to slide this in, the Rhennee would be from one of those worlds, or possibly people from our world who crossed over onto Oath.
Interesting.
It makes sense to me in the same way that that he's drawing. Greyhawk draws from an amalgamation of literary fantastica, right? And I'm thinking, you have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where you can enter Narnia through basically a closet or a wardrobe. You have Zelazny's novels, where characters can move through multiple worlds. What's interesting here is that you have an entire yes, Sam, we're coming to the Atloy because of
yes,
the land-based thing in a moment.
We got some good
but the
stuff.
idea would be that you have the Romani types who cross over into this land, find it's a land of monsters, and the Aerdi are there and aren't very comfortable without another itinerant people around. So they take to the majority of them take to the waterways. A handful of them, we learn through the Gord novels in particular, remain on land and have caravans and become the Atloi, who are a land-based people. Now, apparently the name Rhennee is supposed to mean true folk, right? So the river-based people see themselves as the true folk and see the ones who remained on land as kind of dicey.
Even the Atloi, or no?
Yeah, they see the Atloi as
Okay.
because they're land-based, right?
Mhm.
They didn't go with the rest of the true folk.
Yeah.
And the Atloi kind of see the river folk the same way. You're the ones who took off to the water. You're not maintaining the tradition, right? You kind of deviated, even though you're the majority, from the way that we were when we came over.
Yeah.
So they look down on each other, but they share one thing, which is, and it's mentioned a few times in the literature, that if an outside source threatens them, they are willing to put that aside to confront that threat.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where, if that makes sense, yeah, I really don't like you, but we're still family.
So like different clans that exist when they need to get together and for a cause when they need to, but all the other times there's antipathy.
Yeah, they're not gonna associate with each other unless necessary.
Yeah, like the French and the British.
Or like any number of groups, really.
Interesting. So, this is, and there's really not much about, there's not a book on Backloonish, there's not a book on Iridians or Soul. So what we're pulling here from is from a lot of obscure or references that we know about in this discussion. We have pushed this discussion, Anna and I, off for 3 years. Right, just saying, I don't know if we're ready. I don't know if we're prepared. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. It's 2024. It's a new year.
Yep. Yeah.
Let's help out. We got some stuff here, so we're gonna attempt it. We're gonna attempt the discussion. It's interesting to Rhennee have this giant Great Lakes and rivers that can be found. What percentage of freshwater shipping do you think they?
I think we're going to get to that question when we start talking about their relationships in like divers and Greyhawk.
Yep, I have a river map ready for this purpose.
Excellent.
Oh, beautiful! Yeah, we can bring that up whenever we need to.
Yep, when we get there.
So, I don't have the. Let me. Does anyone know where the Rhennee are in the 80 box set?
Or in the 82 box set?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually got it open. Let me go over here and see if I can find it.
Yeah, and then I'll go.
I'm going to search in the PDF here and see. Yep.
Okay, page 6 of the glossography.
All right, Greyhawk gloss. Let me see if I can get to that, because that's the one thing I didn't bring up.
It's mentioned twice, so it's mentioned in the new div section. And
and the main part about them and their weapons and barges and everything is the glossography, page 6.
Okay,
there.
yep. So it's I looked at the main thing, and they're mentioned twice there. So let's
give me a second here. I gotta go here. I gotta go
glossography.
Here. I gotta go to first edition.
There we go. Yeah.
And World of Greyhawk box set. All right. You said page 6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Thereabouts. I mean, it starts and then it goes on.
5, 6.
5, 6.
All right, cool.
Yep.
We'll start there.
Yeah, there you have all the crunch. It's interesting. They have all the fluff in one book and all the crunch in another book. That's kind of a nice way of putting
I'm
it.
in the wrong part. Aren't
Yeah, you're wrong book, but keep that one because they're mentioned twice there too in the new div section.
So I gotta go down here. There we go.
There's what's really interesting about that is, like I said, it mixes, and I think it really successfully does something that I love, which is where some of the crunch implies fluff, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The description of the barges and how the barges are laid out.
I like that when mechanics kind of guide the world. First, you figure out what world do you want, and then you set the mechanics to create that world, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's
right off the
right
off the bat here. It says these gypsy barge folk, which is no PC.
Well, yeah,
then.
we know that, but this you have to realize that's why they put a warning sticker on it, or like in adversaries, or a little sticker saying that the content doesn't read as well these days as when it was written. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I was going to say along those lines, I think it's interesting that the way that they're drawn out is far more amenable to adjustment
Yeah.
than the way that the Vistani were originally used in Ravenloft. That might sound controversial, but the ones in Ravenloft, this Monday actually, on Wiley and Matthew's podcast, we're doing the Imperial Gothic, and I kind of discuss how monsters and sinister humans and things like this, at one point you have this idea of the otherworldly and of monsters that are outside of things, right? And by monsters, I just mean generically threats, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But as cultures develop, and certainly as the idea of borders and control and hierarchies establish themselves, you have this idea of marginal figures and then figures from outside the borders of the, acceptable. And at some point, very early on, relatively, the Romani people were kind of cast in the role of well, they were itinerant, right? Which is when you're starting to develop, when you have like certain social structures, that's a threat. That's something that's strange. These people who
I
travel
think when
around
the first
and don't have any.
agricultural folks that were agriculturalists or that cultivated the land, and they became living in one spot and started to protecting it. That's when people who were nomads or migrants or people that hunter-gatherers and stuff, that's when you probably started having a cultural clash between them. And I think this is just part of that
And
kind of conflict,
even later
so to
with
speak.
groups that wind up lumped with them. For example, some of the Irish Highland travelers, right? Scottish Highland travelers. You have this association.
Hey,
There's a certain belief that they may be descended from, say, the Picts, right? And when you get into the Pictish stuff, you get into this idea of all kinds of weird stuff, theories that were floating around at the time about evolution and stuff. Now, all this is off topic, sort of, except I will say that the way that the Vistani are presented is more the traditional, sinister, satanic, or witch-like.
Because it fits the Ravenloft setting. It fits
exactly.
that
It's Gothic horror.
But we also,
horror.
I think we also have to acknowledge, at least from my perspective, the way I see it is that a lot of the stuff that we deal with in fantasy are a version of fairy tales. We made games out of fairy tales, and a lot of fairy tales and old stories and folklore and stuff is made from superstition and a lot of bad stuff that happened. But we try to make something fun and good and lighthearted out of it. That is just a game. And that means that we have to acknowledge that a lot of these old assumptions and stuff are horrible, so to speak. But we can still make a good game. We just have to acknowledge that a lot of it is wrong and not try to think it's real or anything. So,
and even then, in terms of keeping the genre living, I would argue that an example I used before, and I'm going to use it here, would be look at something like the 70s wave of horror films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff, and how that was a reaction to the fact that Dracula was no longer scary. Okay. There's a certain point where your particular set of fears and myths devolve into camp. They're not only potentially offensive, but they're campy.
Les, I don't know about you, but Frank Langella scared the hell out of me.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay. I was
funny.
I was more scared by Christopher Lee getting his hands on the plague and unleashing it in one of the Dracula films, but that was because he had a bioweapon, right? But my thing there is simply that with the Romani, with the Rhennee, there are a couple of things that kind of allude to some of those cultural anxieties about
and maybe
people.
Rhennee and Romani or so on, they are too close for just being coincidence. There might be a connection between the two names in that sense, because so the Roma or the Romani or what the different way you pronounce it and stuff. So that might be more than a coincidence that those names are close, so to speak.
But to get back on point for a moment.
Now we can leave this discussion.
Yes.
Exactly. We've done this discussion.
Now that we've covered that, we've done our due diligence, I think.
I gotta ask this question. Les. It's just bothering me. It says folklore claims a race came to Earth by accident. That's it. I mean, there's no and everyone goes, oh, they're from another planet. Well,
exactly. I want to and now I want to. I think we should go in one little tangent when you
Okay.
touched on this, meaning what alternatives are there, so to speak, meaning
Right.
how can you tackle this in your campaign? One is that you can say, oh, they come from another game setting or another dimension or another planet
I
or
don't like
somewhere. But I want to have it rather that they are another people that comes from they did travel in time, but they were the ones that they've been there all the time, but they stem from another culture, so to speak, that was there prior, and they kind of there's just like the Flan and the Ullman and others, they are one of the other ones, but they have traveled in geography as well as time, so to speak. Not literally traveled in time, but they are a remnant of another folks that were.
I like
another
that so much
cultures that-
better.
yeah,
See,
yeah. So
I've got to say, I understand where you're coming from. It provides a more
Yeah.
contained within the world view.
mhm,
Yep.
yep, and
But
that's
by the
how I
same
like
token,
it. But
by
yeah,
the same token, like I said, this is a world that has dying lands, right?
yeah.
And
mhm.
it's and demi-planes, and it's easy enough for me to think that Oath is connected to, like I said, the Earth,
Well,
and
exactly.
Earth,
You can have
or
alternate timelines. You can have alternate realities that
yeah,
are multiple, meaning the multiverse and the meaning that the theories that the physicists are now starting to think about. You can
exactly.
implement that in your fantasy.
And this is something that they've
Yeah.
done. Like I said, I mean, it was
Yeah.
in a way, by doing that, Gygax was tying into what's
Mhm.
called portal fantasies, the
Yep.
idea of
Mhm.
gates between worlds, which you find,
Yep.
like I said, everywhere from going back to
Okay.
C.S. Lewis and others through Zelazny.
Yeah.
And it
Yep.
even mentions in the player's guide, the Anne Brown written
Yep.
player's guide, that they are thought to have first appeared in the Flaness around the Adri Forest around 150 Common Year.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm like, okay, are they an offshoot of the Flan? Why do they look mostly? Why do they
No, I
resemble
don't
the
think they're an
Iridians?
offshoot of the
Yeah,
Flan.
they
They're
look
an offshoot
Iridian.
of something way earlier. But you can
And
also tie it
Yeah.
into the cairns and stuff. Meaning, what if there were other people that came from another dimension or another
Interesting.
parallel
oh,
world or
absolutely.
something that
In my
made the
campaign,
cairns and stuff? Yeah, meaning there
in
might have been others back in history that also have done the same journey that the Rhennee have done. So you can open up interesting fantasy possibilities with that type of thinking that could be
well,
that you can tailor to the way you want your campaign to function, so to speak.
absolutely. Eric Mona has a wonderful piece that I believe is still on Cannon Fire
Yeah,
that he wrote back in the day, and I think it was published on the WotC site, where he's discussing the cairns and he's discussing some of the otherworldly remains that have been found there.
yeah,
So yeah, I very much like that idea, and that's
yeah,
something that I've tied in to my campaign. I like
Okay.
the
yeah.
idea
Mhm.
of
And
I like the idea of the ambiguity, and plus, I mean, in terms of practicality, they're here, so you don't
Yes.
yeah.
really
Mhm.
have to worry too much about how they got here, unless you're
Exactly.
that
And my
obsessive.
advice to DM, if you want to run a long-term Greyhawk campaign, you as a DM, you should figure out the truth and then don't tell anyone. Write it down
Yeah.
so you know what happens, so to speak, because
Interesting.
that way you can use that later on for adventure clues and whatever, but don't tell the players. Keep that story to yourself, but use it so you can build consistency over time for your campaign
Or
going
have some
forward, so to
general
speak.
idea.
Exactly. You don't have to nail it down. You can be a mystery for you too, but you can also start thinking kind of, yeah, in what direction you want to go. And you can build your own truth, keep it in order to use it to create evidence and stuff like that that you can sprinkle in long before the players would ever know about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And also, I think that can tie into some interesting. I mean, that gets into another interesting point, which would be these are itinerant people, whether
Yeah.
they're domestic, if you will, or alien in the sense of from another world.
Mm-hmm.
They're outsiders with the majority of the cultures
But they're still
of Oath,
humans. Can
and they're still humans.
Yeah, can they breed? Are they half Rhennees and stuff like
I'd
that?
imagine
Or
so. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of gets into that with some of the later material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that also it would vary in some ways. I don't want to draw too close a parallel to the real world,
Yeah.
but you do have groups that are, how can I put it, more traditionalist and isolationist.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have groups that have over time acculturated and acclimatized to their
Yeah, and they
surroundings.
come and go, so to speak,
Yeah.
too. So and also, do we know, for instance, other cultural markers like their language and their writing, for instance? Do they have their own scripture
Yeah,
or
Rhennee can't.
alphabet and
Yeah,
stuff? Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
So we know that there are other markers like that too. So meaning they might be traced and then you can invent. And there are other little odd groupings of humans. They are the Urtugs, whatever, up in the near the black ice and stuff. There are others, little remnants of people that don't seem to belong in the big general cultures of Seoul and Bakluni and Flan and stuff. So Rhennee are not the only ones. There are others mentioned here and there too, which makes it interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
certainly. But to emphasize again the Rhennee, the thing is that they are, I think, more numerous than some of the other groups,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
certainly more widespread by virtue of being itinerant. And also at
Yeah.
times, it might be worthwhile to play with the idea that not all cultures are necessarily logocentric or grammacentric, right? They're not necessarily centered around like the idea of the written word as
No,
having
exactly.
primacy.
Some of them, yeah.
So you can have oral traditions
Yep.
and things like that.
Yeah, and also the Rhennee also smack down in the center of the Greyhawk setting, which means that they are difficult to ignore, so to speak. They
Yeah.
are there where a lot of the other stuff happens.
And they conduct a lot of trade.
Yeah,
Yes, he did,
yeah.
Gordon.
So that way they're central to the setting, literally as well, so to speak, than figuratively. They are in the middle of where things happen. So yeah,
Well, did Gord spend time with the Rhennee or the Atloy?
both.
Both,
Both.
that's right.
He used the Rhennee to get across the Nirdiv,
That's
and
right.
then he was
With the Atloy on the
took
other
to
side, right,
yeah with
right,
the
okay,
Atloy to
that's right.
get across the land. So
Which
yeah,
one
And
did
he
they-
actually wound up married at one point.
Which one
yeah,
did they-
exactly. He
to
he
the,
had some sort of
Rhennee.
he didn't understand it, but afterwards he ended up
Yeah,
with
girl
a-
flirts.
yeah.
Girl flirts with him. He winds up in a knife duel, and he
Yeah.
winds up getting a
Mhm.
wife.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, which I thought was hilarious. Is another symptom of Gord. Like I said,
Mhm.
we tend to think of one of the things I like about the Gord novels, and yes, they certainly have their weak points, would be that Gord is not necessarily as hip as the reader should be to things. Like Gord can be pretty oblivious when it comes to women and to the people around him.
Yeah,
And that's a great example of it early
and
on.
Sam, what you bring up an interesting point, meaning they are willing to accept outsiders, which is a lot of insular folks seems to be very against their women marrying or having relations with
I think,
outside.
though, it's worth noting that the reason that they allow him to marry is because they're already celebrating because they had fought that, I think it was a dragon turtle.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, it was. Yeah, it was after
And
the big
it
sea
mentions
monster.
in
Yeah.
several it mentions in several sources throughout that they will accept people who they have adopted as children or who have proven their worth to a clan or tribe.
Okay, good. Yeah, makes a
So
lot
it's
of
not
sense.
so it's
Yeah.
not like they just hey, come and join us.
Exactly. Yep, makes a lot of sense.
All right.
It's kind of like you got to prove your worth, right?
Mhm.
You got to prove
That's
that you're
funny,
worth
Garner.
being taken into the secrets.
That's funny. So
And that ties into that. I was going to say when we discuss how we use them later, that ties into some stuff with how I use them in relation to I use.
yeah,
And some other things.
which is right in there in this Free City Greyhawk box set. I mean, it talks about it right at the beginning. And this is where I learned most of my Rhennee lore was right here. In this section, they're very strong and dexterous too, which is crazy. I mean, I guess because being on ship the whole time, and the society is one with very strictly observed customs, right? So they do have Rhennee can't. So it's another language to add to your Greyhawk, which is good. Setting is the Rhennee can't. So. They call lords or nobles. Here's some pictures of their barges, which is cool. Some neat things in the book.
By the way,
yep.
I wanted since he mentioned it and I kind of mentioned it at the same time. Sam is mentioning that in the glossography it mentions the Rhennee kidnapping children.
Yep.
And I'm just going to address that straight up. That's obviously a reference to something that real life Romani were accused of. But to give you some historical precedent, if you're familiar with the bandit James McPherson, famous poet, famous guy who wrote Macpherson's Lament just before he was executed.
Okay.
He was the illegitimate son of a noble and a Romany woman
17.
who had been raised by the noble until the noble was killed, and then he was adopted by a Romany tribe or clan and led them in various acts of criminality, although they were careful. According to all the sources, they were meticulously careful about not hurting civilians. But the point is that that's kind of the take that I do in mine. It's interpreted by outsiders as them kidnapping children, but what they will tend to do is they'll take in orphans.
Got it. Okay.
Because I think that's probably where some of it came from, if that makes sense. It's like you're freaking out the locals by taking people off on
Yeah,
into your roving caravan or your boat.
You're absolutely correct. So
that's one way to adjust it. That's one way to tweak that. And I mentioned that also because, again, the idea there of adoption in or being initiated after you've proven yourself worthy is kind of interesting, and it ties in again to some stuff that comes up later in the lore as well, I think, as it develops.
Well, let's see what other fun things in here. I like how they immediately give them dual classing nobles, so that they're like fighter thieves duel. I guess they couldn't figure out how to do multi-class at this time on them, so they just dueled them. They talk about the barges, who's on board the barges. Here's where Norker gets his wise woman. It's right here. The wise woman is a symbol of the odd role of women in Rhennee society. It talks about they addition to thief levels and other talents. So we'll go over that. We'll go over Norker's class out of Visions of Greyhawk 2, which is here. Skill in herbalism and healing. So I'm assuming he made some changes here, and they have prediction skill. So they're right in here in the box set. And then
also, I think you get another bit of interesting stuff there, which is, and this is mentioned as well in some of the other sources. It comes up in the article that was in Living Greyhawk Journal about the Rhennee, comes up in the Player's Guide. This is a very macho kind of society in some ways, right?
Yep.
And and the men have multiple wives, etc. But here you also have the idea that it's the women who have the magical connection.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
And I can't help but think, if one wants a current pop culture kind of point of reference for that, if you watch Peaky Blinders, the show that's on Netflix, among other things.
Cillian Murphy. Killian Murphy,
and Polly on that show, of course, she can tell a woman who's pregnant that she's pregnant and what gender the child will be. She has visions of the future and can talk to the dead and so on. That's very much playing off of that kind of trope.
Okay.
Because that family is Romany, right? The idea is they're Romany who are trying to adjust themselves and become "quote unquote" respectable members of society. Through organized crime and politics. But anyway, that's very much kind of a similar kind of vibe where the women drive more than the men might publicly allow, if that makes sense. Might publicly let on. So that's kind of an interesting twist on that. Also related to that would be the no divine magic.
Yeah, no clerics.
Thing.
Now
no paladins.
I have them using the witch class that I have. That's Brandon's Witch first edition. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, that would be more of an arcane caster than a divine.
And I have half elves that are half Rhennee, half elven too. So.
And I think you definitely get some.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it depends on how open that particular group is.
Yep.
And how tied to the old ways. Also, just to throw this out there, I think that when you're looking at doing a kind of tight reading of it, you know how there's that idea in D&D that if you travel to certain worlds or planes, you can no longer communicate with your gods?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I like to think that that's something that happened with the Rhennee. Maybe they did have gods.
Point. Yeah, that's a great point, because they are kind of lacking priests, clerics.
Because I think it mentions in it might be the Player's Guide or one of the other sources, but it mentions that they can't really explain what their gods are like.
That's a
warlike.
great point, that they are lost due to their travel, or that they kind of, yeah.
It's interesting.
Yep, that's a great
Never thought
point.
of it that way.
Yep, great point.
Very cool.
And so that's one of the things that I tend to think of when I with my Rhennee, is that they
Mhm.
can no longer speak to their gods, but they can still speak to the dead.
Yeah.
They can still speak to the ancestors
Mhm.
and communicate with rope, if you will,
Interesting.
the world. It's just they've denied access to their gods, which is why they have arcane casters but not divine.
Yeah,
At least
point.
that's my take on it.
that's a great one. Yep. Mhm.
So there is some discussion in here about how they interact in Greyhawk City, which is kind of cool.
Oh
Where-
yeah,
wh-
that and divers. I mean, those are two of my favorite.
Yeah, which makes total sense with divers as well. You get the River Rat and the Green Dragon Inn. It says they're very careful about using their thieving skills. They rarely pick the pockets of native Greyhawkers or burgle them, because they do not want to get on their bad side here. So, what foreigners are open season. They're ready to smuggle people into Greyhawk when they're unheralded. Um, yes, and so also, so here's your point here, Les, about the IUs here. It just says there's one, but there's one notably bad apple, Zora and Sarah, the noble he's in the pay of the cult of the Shriven Sickle, which is even, I guess, a little worse in that. Um, yeah, so that's pretty bad. Rhennee
And you do
Lord.
have, of course, in Elmshire the notorious halfling hatred of the Rhennee.
Yeah,
But that would make sense, because let's face it, hobbits are the ultimate bourgeoisie.
yeah,
They're the ultimate
Yeah,
homebodies,
that's
and they're
true.
just not going
Yep.
to deal with
They
the
are
these.
the very sensitive middle class who complain about everything like we do in real life. Yep.
And then if there were a few bad apples who fell their way, of course they're going to go, oh no, we have to shut ourselves off from
Yep.
this evil influence.
Yep.
good point.
So
Mhm.
yeah, that's one of the things that
That's fun. That's funny, but you're right. Yeah, that's
funny but true. I mean, they
it's
are
a cool
ultimately.
way of a creative way of using halflings and looking at halflings like
Yeah.
mhm.
And Jay, the other thing I was going to mention would be the we're talking about Greyhawk, the Docker and Worfman's Union, right?
Yes.
Where it mentions that the Thieves Guild basically was kind of frustrated because Hugo, the guy who's running the union,
Is it?
is pretty militant and can have strikes and all this stuff. So, and the Thieves Guild were kind of frustrated because, darn it, he's not going to let us use. But then they realized, no, this is ideal. It creates a front for us where we infiltrate the Union with our thieves and use it for smuggling. It's just that Hugo doesn't need to know about it. And in the meantime, the Union, as it mentions here, members of this is again from the City of Greyhawk box set. Members of this union have neutral relations with the Rhennee barge folk. The Rhennee do not use the services of the union's members, preferring to load and unload downriver in the shack town abutting the river quarter, and union members leave them alone out of respect.
Right. So it's kind of like they got their own kind of set of rules,
Yeah, their own business. They conduct their business their way.
Yeah.
They don't meddle with the union. The union doesn't meddle with them.
Yes, because could have had a bad incident in the past or something, or it's like we don't want to go there.
Or just in general, I mean, if you think about it, having an open war between two groups over shipping and delivery and loading up stuff, it's not good for business.
Right.
It's not good for either party's business. So it's better for them to just have a detente.
Yeah,
so to
business focused folks tend to not like war, because some of them do, but a lot of times war is kind of devastating. It makes everything. They want to have rules that persist over time, so you can make investment and so on.
Exactly, and Anna, that ties into one of the things, Jay, we were talking about IUs. One of the things in my campaign, and it discusses this again in the player's guide, the idea that the majority of Rhennee tend neutral.
Yeah.
Right. And my thing would be that, again, I'm thinking of this in terms of how in the DMG, the first edition DMG, it mentions that some of the druids, and we're presuming here, of course, they're meaning Greyhawk druids, practiced human sacrifice at various points. but we're not fully evil. Like this was something presumably, you're insuring the crops or something has to be done. Presumably there's a tribal volunteer,
I
whatever.
was going to say that there are the old ideas from Viking Age that a lot of the
Exactly.
human sacrifice was actually willing because they were promised to
Right.
go
I
to
thought they had to
Valhalla
be
and
willing,
all
yeah.
that. So
And
according
this,
to legend, at least, I don't know how true that is. That
in
I'm
a
not an
similar,
expert.
exactly.
So, yeah.
In
But
a
there are
similar way,
ideas of it. Yeah.
in a similar way, let's look at this from a business perspective
Yeah.
and from a cultural perspective. It's like you're doing business with the city of Greyhawk, or you're doing business with this group or that group. But there's nothing to say that you can't do business with IUs as well, right?
Well, a lot of business people are not morally, meaning as long as you can do good business, then you do good business
Yeah, I
with
think the
whoever
Zilch's
you can do
priest will
business
deal
with.
with anyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly my point. I mean, it meant, the Zilch's priests are supposed to be great at diplomacy for that reason. They aren't going to condemn somebody per se,
Well, unless they're Michael Baton.
unless it's bad for business, right?
Yes.
And this is where it gets into my idea that there might be then a younger generation of Rhennee who might start falling under the sway and influence of the money that an Iusian brandishes in front of them, and then might start falling into that culture.
Sure.
And then, of course, the older generation might not approve of that. So you might have an internal conflict within the Rhennee that the Rhennee choose to handle themselves.
But that Les, that's an interesting thoughts. And I was thinking maybe there are like let's say Rhennee have that stiff meaning. You should in order to be accepted within our society, so to speak, and our community, you need to behave within these norms, so to speak.
Exactly.
And then there are always the occasional Rhennee that kind of, no, I want to do other things, or I want to join a cult, or just go travel, do something else, or marry someone else, or do things that are outside of what's accepted in Rhennee culture and society. And so that I can always see like a trickle of Rhennee that simply abolish their way of life and so on. Just like there are a trickle of people, outsiders, who are probably adopted into the culture as well, like Gord was in the Gord books, for instance. So I can see that working both ways. And usually young people are usually the most experimental in your life, so to speak. So I can see a lot of teenagers who say, no, I don't want this, and run away because the parents are telling them, you need to do this, and so on. Like arranged marriages and all that stuff. Yeah.
Jay, if you don't mind a slight digression into the way that I employed this in the campaign.
Go for it.
An uneasy alliance between a group of Tritherianites and some Rhennee. Okay. In that there was a group of Rhennee who had been doing, basically they'd fallen over and they were full on helping Ius actively, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this gives the Rhennee a bad image on the whole.
Okay.
So some Rhennee had basically sworn a blood vow: we're going to find them and we're going to kill them. And we're going to be the ones to do the killing of them because they're our people.
Yeah.
Now, the Iusians, you Tritherianites can take them out. We don't care about that. We care about our people who are making us look bad and interfering with our business.
Mm-hmm. That's one way of doing it. Yeah.
And that actually played out in one of the scenarios in my campaign, where the player characters, player characters had been captured by Iusians. A second group of player characters who were Tritherianites accidentally sprang them. And then, of course, the Rhennee who had hauled them up became part of the fight and were captured by the Rhennee who had brought the Tritherianites up. And there was this whole exchange that the players overheard, where one of them said, but I know that your father's father did business with the old one. And the other one, to which one of them said, there's a difference, boy, between renting your hand and selling your soul or your people.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically just slit the guy's throat.
I like that. So very cool.
And it was basically just, if that makes sense, that idea of justice.
Yeah.
As they see it. And it's our justice. These are our people. You can avenge your people. Mm-hmm. We're settling business within our own community.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Les, oldest publication that we have here altogether is the Polyhedron one that old? Is the oldest one from? or
No,
not?
well, outside of the gold box.
Yeah, it's because it's from polyhedron 92, which I don't know what year that is. I don't see it
Yeah,
anywhere in the article.
that's pretty old. I mean, that's you're talking about the River Adventure
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
yeah, which I showed you, which is great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We have an interesting question from Rex Fellas that presumably renegades in smuggling. I think, yeah, that's
Oh, yeah,
probably true.
absolutely.
That's a safe
Both-
assumption.
fencing,
yeah,
yes.
because it's from their perspective that it's just a good business opportunity because you get a surplus on it.
But I don't think they had
And-
in and out with the Thieves Guild like he asked. I don't think so. I don't think the Thieves Guild and them got along. No.
Yeah, that might be, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see, because both they spread out over a big geographical area, and they also morally convenient in that sense that if they can earn money and do deals, they are willing to do deals without too many. They don't want to have alliances with others, and that's all. That means that they are kind of a neutral force. So if you want to trade between IUs and others, I can see Rhennee being some of the facilitators of that trade, which is probably in many countries illegal. So then it technically becomes smuggling from an Ernst perspective or a Shieland or a Furundi perspective. But in Greyhawk, it might be seen as, well, it's a bit more expensive and it comes from more exotic places and they don't ask questions. And in some areas, yeah, in some areas will be highly illegal. In other areas, it would just be that no one else wants to do it. So the Rhennee does it, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to approach it. Also, I
Yeah.
think that the relationship between thieves guilds or in Diver's case, the Thieves Alliance and the Rhennee would be, to use a now outdated thing, it would be like a Facebook, it's complicated status.
Yeah, and
because you've got that union which is infiltrated by thieves guild members, so they can use that.
Yeah.
They can also use,
Oh,
presumably, the Thieves Guild, or the Rhennee Thieves Guild can, through its representatives and agents, use the Rhennee for their own purposes.
That's what I'm going to say, that the Thieves Guild probably would like to they use anybody that they can use in order to maybe, if they steal things they want to sell off and so on. So they will use the Rhennee as long as it's on the Thieves Guild's terms, meaning as long as the Rhennee stay out of the city, don't do business in the city. They only do business with them at certain locations that are outside, and then they will tell the Rhennee that we can deal with you here and so on and so forth. But if you show up in the city, start selling stuff and so on, that's a no from our
I can
perspective.
see this is where there's a source of tension. We like to think of these relationships as either or sometimes.
No,
whereas to me it can be both, because again, here's the thing where the Rhennee, as discussed in, again, the some of these, the journal article and the player's guide, they have this sensibility where if you can carry it, it's yours.
Yeah.
Now you can see how that would butt up against, to some extent, the Thieves Guild, which wants thievery to be under its control, if you will, its regulation. Where you have someone who's itinerant who will just come in and pocket shit, right? I'm going to go ahead and pocket this thing because I want it. Someone else didn't defend it, and it's right here. And hey, it's on my person; it's mine. Yeah, you can see where that would drive it. That could create tensions at times between the Thieves Guild and the Rhennee.
Yeah, because I don't see any notation in any of the Greyhawk box sets that Orgnension and them are keen about allying with the Rhennee on anything.
And I was going to point out in the novels, actually, it's to get away from the Thieves Guild.
Yeah,
that Gord hops a ride with the Rhennee.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I see the Thieves Guilds as chaotic in nature, meaning they don't form alliances and stuff. They do deals. They're like, okay, it's advantageous for us right now to do this deal with the Rhennee. They will do it. Next week they might deal with someone else against the Rhennee if that. So they are. I see. It's like in politics. Some people are and institutions and parties and ideologies. They are institution builders. They build institution. They put laws and scriptures and treaties and stuff like that. That's lawful, so to speak. Yeah. And then you have the chaotic ones. They're the ones that make a deal. It's fortunate enough we can earn money or we can settle a peace or debt or whatever. and we make a deal and we say, okay, now we do this. And then you look around and see, okay, now I can make another deal. And that's a more chaotic way of looking at it.
And see, Anna, I would also say then there's the neutral, which can be, well, it kind of depends right now on what the
Exactly.
circumstances are.
You can see the benefit of striking a long-term alliance, but with them, you can see the benefit of both. And
in my campaign, that was part of. It was clear the Iusians were yet again making a ploy to undermine Greyhawk.
Mm-hmm.
These Rhennee had allied themselves with Ius, and from the Rhennee who were doing business in Greyhawk, if that got out, and if this younger group's propensities and alliances made the rounds in Greyhawk, this could damage some of our business in Greyhawk.
Yeah.
Right? Someone could use that.
Yeah. And I just want to add
I'm going to eliminate. We would need to eliminate them, basically.
Yeah. I just want to add one more thing to my discussion on lawful and chaotic behavior when it comes to trade and politics, is that they're both evil and good on both sides. There are good ones that are lawful and wants the institutions and laws and all that, and there are good ones that are deal makers and would cut a deal one way or the other, so to speak, and are more up to the situation in the moment, and evil on both sides as well. So that is more like that's your modus operandi, not your morals, so to speak. Some deal makers are some people think in deals and good terms now and then, or something that is beneficial, so to speak. That might be also, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say also with that, you have to take into consideration dealing with humans versus dealing with a Cambion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And a demigod at that, where that could be seen as you're following this world's religions and you're following, not only that, not only are you violating our culture by following an evil demigod, but you're interfering with our business. It's like a twofer, right?
Yep.
You're doing two things that harm the greater Rhennee.
Yeah. So in my sense, then Rhennee are either neutral or more chaotic than lawful, so to speak.
Thanks, Moose.
In my take, that
Yeah, mine they tend to be more neutral and business oriented, and that can include, we need to eliminate this threat.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily an evil thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just a pragmatic thing.
Well,
it's not done.
Neutrals are the pragmatic in that sense. They can work both ways, and they figure it out and so on. So
And we can't. And the thing is, we can smuggle for Ius, but that's different than worshiping and helping him actively.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guarantee there's a lot of that going on,
and that makes the world a campaign much more interesting. If there are gray zones, there are people in between, and so on. It should not be overly obvious. Exactly, it's not only friends, allies, and enemies. There should be other interests and factions and whatnot that complicates things a little bit. At least I think that's more interesting.
So let's discuss this, because I don't think 99% has ever seen this before.
I haven't seen it until you picked it up. I picked it up now when you posted it in here.
So Les, it's River Rats, and I read up ahead, and Zoran's in here, the bad guy who's in the Free City Girl box set. So this must have come out after that. Yeah. Yep. So
do we have any idea when 92 was published?
It's got to be after 89, 80, in that era. Yeah,
so it's in the 80s somewhere.
Yeah. It's polyhedron 92. So, but someone can get a date on that. But
February 1994.
There you go. So it is.
Okay.
It's 5 years afterwards. It talks. Bargenda's in here, and Dimitri Valanis, and so there is a lot of names toward. So this is an actual adventure dealing with Rhennee, which is cool.
And they smoke cigarettes apparently, because cigars rather.
Hey, Curtis,
cigars.
Look, the Spotted Cow Inn. So someone.
Oh, that's awesome. Now we have a Spotted Cow Inn, and we have a cigar smoking. Person
Rhennee.
on the first, I'm not sure if that is a Rhennee or not, but it looks like.
Oh yeah. Well, you definitely know that there are. That they're probably bringing it along the river. So
and then there's gnomes in here, so you got the whole party in here. So
As a fun adventure, without going
Yeah.
into spoilers, it's basically a caper, a really wild caper that goes sideways.
Okay.
Involving a riverboat, a barge, and theft, and people wanting a barge back, and
Yep.
Okay.
it goes crazy. Things go sideways and crazy. It's a really fun adventure.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's one of those things where polyhedron, I think, I'm going to just throw this out there. Everyone, of course, knows Dragon and knows Dungeon. Polyhedron was kind of the in-house organ for the RPGA.
Mm-hmm.
And I've shown you before, it included some monsters that were left out of the Monster Manual 2 in certain issues.
Yep.
It had some this Greyhawk adventure. It had Gygax talking about planned projects for Greyhawk before he left. There's a lot of really cool stuff back in Polygon, and I'd highly recommend, if people get a chance, to go ahead and hunt down some of those issues, or look up an archive.
Definitely hunt them down, because it's something we want to. You want to keep, just like I said, I never had seen this until Les shared it with me. We found a lot of specialty priests and other crusaders and all sorts of other things that Eric Boyd did at polyhedrons. There's always some gems, some Greyhawk gems that get located after all these years, and this is one of them. And kudos to Les. Rob, this is it's a huge find. So,
and I've got to say, it's an example of because it does have some strong elements of humor.
Yeah.
It's an example of an adventure that has humor that isn't cheesy.
Right.
At least not to me. To me, it's got a kind of earthy humor to it that I really appreciated.
Yeah.
Kind of grounded humor, and the fact that it ties in all this stuff about the docks and barges and so forth, I just really loved.
Yeah.
Grotnick's got to be a hit. This guy's 6'10". Is he a half ogre? Grotnick or Technus? Fighter 8 thief. He's got to be.
Did you say 6'10"?
Yeah, he's got to be a half ogre.
Yeah. Yeah, 6'10" is kind of tall for me.
Yeah. It doesn't say that specifically. So, thanks, Kai. Yeah. That's weird. Grotnick is his man. I guess he's just a big human. Wow. So it's a cool adventure. Always, if you can find stuff in polyhedron, that's 94. So that may not. That's probably one of the older things that we have here. Yeah, definitely older than Living Greyhawk ones. So,
and then of course we have the other adventure that I mentioned, the con game, the convention game.
Which one? 1 second.
The quest for the golden.
Yep. Let me bring that up. Yep.
It doesn't explicitly mention the Rhennee, but it does tie in with. It does have a section that ties in with the Rhennee and with the
Thanks. Gotcha, Zudrak.
With a Romany group, and it does have people of how can I put it, human and non-human mixes. Yes, this was a tournament module, actually.
It origins 84. I'm a junior in high school.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Set in Valuna.
Yeah.
And it's a quest for the golden orb of St. Cuthbert.
Nice. So
go on.
No, I know nothing about this one either. I've only scanned through it, so I know you gave it to me a long time ago.
Yeah, I think like 4 years ago.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
Shipped you a copy.
Baba Zog's in here.
Yeah. But there is a half-orc wise woman named Madame Orcus and her traveling caravan.
Okay.
And so in my take on this would definitely be an Atloy, or an offshoot of the Atloy at least, who have mixed with humanoids. And you encounter a boy who tries stealing from you, and really, if you catch him, you should return him to his people. Or if you harm him, you bring the wrath of his people, and you don't get some clues that would help you solve the quest. This is, after all, a tournament module.
Wow.
So there's a failure factor. But yeah, it's a neat little setup involving this.
There she is.
Yeah, Madame Orcus.
So how did you remember this, Les? I mean, my gosh.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. With 1984, man. The connection on this one.
Because I always loved Madame Orcus, and actually,
Okay.
she and the boy who's the son of their quote unquote king or leader, um, are kind of NPCs in my campaign. Depending on what year it is, the boy is now grown up and is the leader of the group, or you're back in Madame Orcus's days.
Yeah, this is done with a bad word processor.
Yeah.
Look at the print.
Dot matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like old classics. Oh, crypt thing. Look at that. Oh, perfect. So yeah,
And it's hard to find copies.
Here
There is a digital copy floating around. I will mention that there were only 50 copies printed at the con.
right.
But
Wow.
it's definitely worth hunting down.
Very cool. And it's in Valuna, so there you go. Githyanki Cave. Great Dismal Swamp. So here's another cool adventure that has Rhennee in it. Another one I think is, but they're just sidebars, right? It's the Falcon series.
Yeah. I mean, they come up here and there in different adventures in parts. So yeah, that's definitely one place.
Yeah, and that is mostly for using the barges themselves. So using the Rhennee barges to get away. I think in the second Falcon one. So I mean, they're really not. There's not a bad guy, Rhennee, that's going around slitting throats or anything like that. So here's the point system. Yeah.
When we were talking about
Look
ambivalence,
at that map. Holy jeez.
And kind of complication. What you have is, how can I put this? Okay, like it mentions explicitly that in divers, the Rhennee lately have been complaining of some of their barges being attacked, and also of some of their people being kidnapped. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
But then it mentions that most of the residents of divers, because of their general attitude and distrust of the Rhennee, just shrug these stories off. Right.
Right.
And in my campaign, like in the general, when stuff like that arises with the Rhennee, you have the again. To me, it's more taking in orphans, but the way it's presented, the way that other cultures interpret this is kidnapping. Or if you have Fae who take away children, right?
Right.
Everyone blames the Rhennee.
Yeah.
So it builds this tension between them and more sedentary populations. And you wind up with these tensions that arise when there's an actual threat and the Rhennee know about it. Nobody's going to trust them, right? Because you're just itinerant, you're wandering, you're crazy people.
Yeah,
you don't worship our gods.
Yeah, they're different. Yeah, absolutely.
Curtis, I have a question, and I want to answer Curtis. Say, no, I don't see them as neutral evil. I see them as neutral. They are the ones that are willing to make deals, but they stay to themselves and they don't trust others. And they're like wild animals in that sense, meaning they can do occasional transactions with you if it's beneficial. But most of them, they don't like to mix and they stay with themselves, and their tradition is to only interact with others when it's beneficial for them, and they don't go out and they don't wage war with others. They tend to stick to themselves, and they're transactional in their dealings with others.
Yeah, well, someone like, for example, did something to one of their women, they're going to cut you into pieces, and
exactly, and also
and
if one of their
over to the law.
folks go out and do something stupid with someone else, they only accept that they should deal with it, so to speak, and so they see themselves as not part of any other community. They're themselves to themselves, so not necessarily evil, but definitely I would see them as, in that sense, one of the most true neutral ones in that sense. Yeah.
And even when I allow for neutral evil ones, again, they have no particular ties to Oith's cosmological conflicts, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's neutral evil in for want of a better term, a secular sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
As in, this is my business, and this is how I conduct my business.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of having a vested interest in when we think of neutral evil, when we think of chaotic evil, lawful evil, we tend to think of different factions that are allied with demons or gods in Greyhawk, right? A neutral evil Rhennee is not going to have those kinds of ties, or at least mostly not. The majority of them wouldn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
They'd
would
be more
have.
interested in it from a business angle, and I
Yeah, I
see the
was.
majority of them as neutral.
Yeah, and I would say neutral
Too
evil be
neutral.
the ones that go out and do cause disruption and pain and mischief and all sorts of stuff just for the heck of it, so to speak, and are willing to use any methods whatsoever and prefer to deal with things in a violent
Oh
kind of
yeah,
destructive way, so to speak.
except I would play in as well the
Yeah.
possibility that you don't know.
Hey,
Like,
David.
if this makes sense, Anna, there are people who are that way, who
Yeah.
have those tendencies,
Mm-hmm.
who will still put up the front for the sake of business.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the kind of
Yeah.
neutral evil that I'm describing.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, they're
Most
you know,
neutral
they
evil
have
will
these
probably
things.
want to hide it to some degree or
Exactly.
tone it down in order to get a better result when they spring it, so to speak. So yeah.
And
Something wrong
and
with that?
certainly it's like their tendencies could interfere with business and cause conflict with the greater, more neutral community. So yeah, that's another take on.
And now we're talking alignment, which means that it's very much up to how you want to use alignment in your games. Meaning this is something
Exactly.
you can do differently, and you can skip it and don't have this discussion at all, so to speak. And for some people it's important, and it's built into the mechanics. For me, it's more something that I use in order to make up themes and stories and stuff, and I label them. It has very little to do with mechanics in my games. So it's something that I think you should think about how you want it around your table and discuss it with your players, how they should do it, because there are many different ways of handling alignment. Yeah.
Yeah. Rick Saul says, anyone run that adventure? I'm like, no, only Les knew about the adventure.
Yeah,
so no one else ran it.
way back in the day, I DM'd.
Yeah.
And
Should we talk about what areas of Greyhawk the Rhennee could be found, and where we should look into the geography of the Rhennee
yeah, we can do that.
distribution, so to speak?
We have a lot of publications still that have been located, so we'll go. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that next, and then we'll go to that
Yeah.
afterwards. So, all right. Here's your map.
Yep. So I made a river map a couple of years ago as an experiment, so to speak. So I realized after done the first release candidate that it's better to do it in GIS. So there will be a better version of this in the future. But I basically took every river that is on my standard Planese map, and I put in arrows to point which direction it flows, and I also put in color code, and I made them wide depending on the size of the river. So the big ones are overemphasized in size, so they're more visible. And I classify them and in 5 classifications. So you have the really dark blue, like the Nessa River, for instance, and the Vang and stuff. They are no size restrictions. You can go in there with ocean-going vessels. They're so big you can sail up them with almost anything. And now with anything, I mean, think medieval sailing ships and stuff like that. So you can go and the next one is small ocean going vessels. Think, yeah, like large Viking ships and other stuff, so to speak. That things that are small but still ocean capable. And then you have the mid blue, that's barges and river flat bottom vessels and stuff. Things that aren't meant to go out in the ocean. They can be big in some senses, but they are adapted to river life, so to speak. And then you have small vessels only, that's the light blue. And now we're talking, and small vessels meaning, and this is also what they can take. Ocean goings mean they can take a whole party and cargo and mounts and all that stuff, so to speak. Small ocean can still take a party of 5 and horses and stuff too. The barges and stuff, they can also take even their mounts and stuff like that. The small vessels only, they are like canoes and little rowboats. They will take a party of 5 and their backpacks. That's it. No mounts or anything like that. And then there's a red meaning impassable. That's like you have to, maybe if you're like a kayaker that can go down and so on, but up it's impossible to go. So that, and there's also major waterfalls being indicated on this one. So that's how to read the color coding. And I think I always assumed that Near-Döv is the center of Rhennee community, so to speak. Is that that right from
I
the
would
sources?
say but not the Northwest. I don't see them going
Okay.
into the Shield Lands.
Okay.
Right. I just don't. I don't know what do you think, Les? Maybe for Andy, but I just don't see him going up there.
Venturing too far.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, I mean that's because
Oh, I always
Unless
assume
they're-
because there's not that much on the Shield Land coast. It's one of
really
the
okay.
yeah. There's a large part without any meaning. We only have 3 places on the Shield Land coast that is several hundred miles long, and we have Bright Sentry, we have Axport, and Battle Down. Those
Okay.
are the only places. Well, if we include
Alhasser.
Alhasser, we have 200 miles of coast, and we have what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places.
Okay.
So there is a lot of coast you can anchor up in and so on. So I
Nice.
see that there is definitely possibility. Meaning that it doesn't seem to be more populated. The northern coast is probably less populated than some other areas, but the Near-Div generally has surprisingly few cities and places where people live. That population density along the shores of Near-Div seems to be conspicuously low for its central location.
But everywhere in Greyhawk's low, right?
Yeah, but it seems to be even lower than that. But
Okay.
that's another thing. But in this context, it could benefit the Rhennee because it gives them places they can anchor up and gather resources like building material to build barges and stuff like that. They can raid for food and gather, because if you live out at sea, there's still things you want to gather like supplies and building material to improve and repair your barges and stuff like that. So and there seems to be plenty of places where they can do so without disturbing the locals that much.
I'm going to interject here because I'm not sure where else to. This idea of them associating with a central body of water. Who was it who asked about where the name came from earlier?
Rex Fellis.
Rex Fellis, I'm going to put something in chat. And tell me if you could see this. And Anna and Jay, you were discussing the French thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me if that word looks like it could be an origin for Rhennee.
Rhennee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rhennee.
That is the French name for the Rhine.
Huh.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, they come from rope, R-H-O-P.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that this is, if you will, that how someone from Oath or the Flanness might hear certain words.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, if they heard someone say, I'm from the Rhennee.
Interesting. Well, that's it's a great catch there, Les. You're probably right on that. You know, whether it was Fortival, did I say that right, or whoever else recommended it. You know,
there's also another lake that I think is also Whitestill Lake is probably also home to Rhennee, because that one has even more empty coastlines, especially on the Vesvi side. There's a long stretch of coastline that has a lot of potential that you can that doesn't seem to have that much civilization to it. Okay. So there's definitely places where the Rhennee can hide out and gather resources and whatnot, so to speak.
I was always thinking that they have they have 4 major points of trade towns. Greyhawk, Divers, Radagast City, and Lucas, right? That's what I always thought.
Yeah.
I just always thought that they went between those 4 cities for some reason.
I was also thinking Admundfort is in the middle of
I don't think that.
But that's the thing. If they have barges, they might avoid going across. But in the Gord books, they literally go. They seem to be the ones that dare to go out into deep water more than regular people in
for some reason, maybe I just have it's my pretentious snobby nature of pre-war Shieldlanders that they wouldn't or free Indians they wouldn't put up with.
That might be that the Shieldlanders don't want to deal with them.
Yeah,
that's definitely a possibility. But then you should go with free Indians too, and Ernst people as well.
Well, yeah, I kind of agree.
They seem to be as righteous. Then it's only Alhasser and Greyhawks, Greyhawkians left.
Well, Radagast, we know they're in Radagast City because of the Gord books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but meaning the Ernst folks seems to be as righteous as the Shieldlanders.
I don't know about that.
Okay, it's good. You put
Yeah,
them on
like I
that,
said, maybe
yeah.
I'm thinking about it wrong, but yeah.
No, I'm just tainted by the living Greyhawk that's said that Shieldlanders were corrupt, and they kind of
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
everyone's dead or corrupt in Shield in the living.
Yeah. So I'm too tainted from that,
Does
unfortunately.
Greyhawk have a functioning navy? Yes. Grok's got marine. Yes, the ships that can make it down and out. But
That's interesting. Do they have a
oh, yeah.
do they have a navy both on the Nirdiv side and on the Woolly Bait side?
No,
Because no, okay.
no, I think it's only on the south.
But
maybe
the coastline is way longer in the north. They have much more of a coastline towards Nirdiv than they have towards the Woolly Bay.
Yeah, I don't know.
If there's somewhere they should have a navy, and they also in meaning in the Woolly Bay side they have Hardby to rely on. That keeps the worst scum at bay. But in the north, it's their turf. So I would
It's a good
say
question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always thought that the Fiorandi Navy dominated the Near Div. So
and the Greyhawkians will hand over the security and power to Fiorandi.
I would assume that a good, at least in my campaign, the way I played is there's a good chunk of the Near Div that's patrolled by Furiandi's navy, and then Greyhawk and Hardby have their own kind of thing going on as well.
Yeah,
that's. But in terms of travel across the Near Div, that would definitely be within the domain of the Rhennee.
Yeah,
because I think it mentions in a few places. I think that the Rhennee are the only ones brave / crazy / experienced enough, to deal with some of the monsters and.
Yeah, because you can see your routes here. There's this whole big open.
They avoid the center of it, but I think Rexfell, it's you're onto something. That's my agreement too. That's why on my map I made Fort Harbor a town, because that's why I assumed that will be one port for Greyhawkians to have it, and Elmshire is another one that they can have.
I always thought that maybe at most was the southern area here, and that's it. I just don't see Greyhawk going throughout the whole Near Div.
No, but I see them as defending their coastline. Meaning, if people like the Slavers Cove, whatever, you don't want a lot of stuff like that. You need to police your territory.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the thing, is that I would always assume that with that stuff and with
otherwise divers would expand up the west coast. They will take more and more. So Greyhawk needs to if you don't look after your interests, someone else will. And I hold that for true in a fantasy world, probably even more than in the real world. Meaning
you'll at least need the equivalent of a coast guard, right?
Yeah, exactly. You need to you either control your territory or someone else will.
Well, and as Phantom NJ brings up the expansionist idea, but there's also the problem that comes up several times going back, that there are, of course, pirates on the Near Div as well as monsters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you want to discourage the beasties from getting too close, and you also want to discourage piratical types from raiding your.
Yeah. So do we think that the Rhennee and their barges are primarily coast huggers, or do they go out into deep waters to avoid contact with others?
I'd say they go out into deep waters.
Okay.
I'd say a little bit of both. It depends on the cargo. Depends on the cargo and depends on the mission.
I don't have a problem with that at all. No.
Yeah. Yeah, meaning then they need to build barges that are reasonably big, so to speak, in order to be big enough to live on for a long time, but also big enough to handle waves, because we're talking a lake that is 200 miles by 100 miles, meaning it's bigger than the Great Lakes, or as big as the Great Lakes. So it will have severe weather and big waves and all that. So you need to have sizable. I can imagine the barges being like 100 feet long, or maybe even bigger.
Some of the larger ones. This actually draws up something that I was wanting to talk about. I kind of mentioned to Jay the other night. There are a bunch of books and other things, studies, and you can find all kinds of great photographic displays of some of the barge folk and river folk from the UK, for example.
Yep.
Who your boat, the more often, particularly back in the heyday, and this was true of the caravan wagons as well. The more ostentatious your boat or your caravan, your wagon,
Yeah.
the higher your status,
Yep.
the more
Mhm.
you had. And so, of
Yeah.
course, if you're prosperous,
You have a
it-
really big one.
and so to speak,
Yeah. And I was
and
thinking, they could be tied together, so they form like groups
exactly.
of rafts,
Well,
and then they put up
that
sails and stuff.
specifically states that in
Yeah.
barge end.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
So that
agree
way they
100%.
can stay connected when they're out on the near div, and then they can detach when they want to go into rivers
Thanks, Rob.
or coastal when it gets a little bit more tricky to maneuver and stuff. And because that's the thing.
Jeez,
Then
I'm in
you
trouble.
can use sails and stuff, but barges are notoriously difficult to steer. So but you have sails and stuff, which means that you can at least maneuver using the wind, and then you can steer with oars and stuff like that. So you have some maneuverability, but it's limited. So in that sense, that probably means that they can also go with the season, so they can follow winds and
Yes.
patterns and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
so you might find them, and also they might go with the season. So if they know in the summer, they might go to the north coast because there might be more resources and stuff up there to collect and to do trade and stuff in the summer months. When the winter and cold hits, they go further south, because if it gets stormier and stuff up north, then it might be better to stay where it's nice and warm, and you might escape down into the Nesse River and maybe even hide out in the south in the Nat Marsh or something like that too. So I don't know how you guys see on their river travel, so to speak, or are they tied to a lake and stay there, or do they use the major rivers to go
I
up
think
and down them?
I think that they go with. I don't think they stealth anywhere. I think they go with impunity. I really do.
Yeah,
I-
because they will
They-
be intimidating. They will be
I don't.
yeah, hundreds of them on a couple of barges. That's a sizable force.
and also, again, I take it as, if this makes sense, because they're also businessmen. I think that one needs to think, yeah, the barges and such can be and boats can be intimidating, but there's a time for intimidation, and then there's a time for stealth.
Yeah,
Like there
and
might be
also
some types of trade that they're conducting where you don't necessarily want
True.
attention, and you don't want to go ahead and flex, if you will, in
True.
front of
I'm just
Yeah,
saying
and-
they don't go in fear, is what I'm saying.
no,
No,
and
absolutely.
yeah, and also and but we also can see that the Rhennee, if that's something they want to do seasonally, they will probably, they are smart enough not to cause more trouble than necessary, because if they know that coming back next season, next year, or every 6 months or every year or so, then you want to have at least reasonable relations with the folks that live along that river, because you don't want to run into trouble the next time you come. The Vikings were different in that sense. The first time they were out raiding, it was like they went out into strange places they never thought they would come back to. Then you can behave with impunity, thinking that, oh, I will never see these people again, or never be dependent on them, or something. So and that might be that Rhennee might not be, but on the other hand, they might be opportunists. If they see an opportunity, they might take it, so to speak. So yeah,
Interesting concept discussion.
yeah. I
Which
think
is
it's more
awesome.
like points I want to bring up in order
Yeah.
for you for every one of DMs. Think about how you want to Rhennee to act, and where they want to be, and plot building materials, so to speak. Yeah.
So let's take a look at this. This is the legendary Living Greyhawk Journal Gazette 2, which has the
Oh, yes.
Malden map in it. It just so also happens
Yeah.
to have The Way of the Lake by Lance Havermale.
Oh,
yes.
which number? What was number?
2,
Was this?
Living Greyhawk Journal
2?
Gazette 2.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
page 12. So we come down here and get some goodness in this. All right. Lore of the Rhennee Barge Folk. So, if the illustrations by Uncle Dubish and Matthew Mitchell. So, some good stuff. Talking about the barge rights, a little story, and it talks about just alliances are made of broken. Currently sailing near Devon or tributaries are nearly 5,000 Rhennee. So it says they're near Devon tributaries. Theirs is a closely knit, loosely organized culture. Merchants, peerless fishermen, incorrigible gossip, warriors, smugglers, consummate revelers, and occasional thieves. There you go. So approximately 100 leaders known as nobles and lords. So he goes into a little bit of the detail, a little more detail here, and also gives you some classes, which is cool. Some specialty, some prestige classes. So all males are clever close quarter combatants. So among the tools the nobles have at their disposal is the elite Dark Haggard, or Spear Guard. The men of the Dark Haggard, I hope I'm saying that right, are expert navigators and vicious warriors. So, and there's a picture of one. Yep. So there's actually a specialty priest, not specialty priest, a prestige class here, which is cool. So, playing 3rd edition, and Punk Rock Jenny. What's going on? Yeah, we're going deep on this one. Anna and I have been holding off, and Les was kind enough to come on. Have been holding off on this discussion for 3 years. So, yeah, this is a good one. So, and Rob, thanks for doing that. So, the Dark Haggard 3rd edition, it gives you all some abilities on it. A nice picture, and they actually have a specialty spear called the Darka. So, a neat,
Yep.
a 2-pronged harpoon. So,
Yep.
really cool.
Which makes sense for seafarers.
Yeah, absolutely. And also attached,
And a Veth class and stuff. The Veth.
Yep.
Yep.
And new magic got a bilge fog.
With spell lists and stuff too. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, this was done really well. This article. Also talking to, so here's the Vetha. The magic of the Rhennee is primarily the province of the wise women, colloquially known as the Vetha. So, yep.
That's cool.
Yep. And spell list here, and also all their abilities. So, yep. Hex mastery. So, got a little witch in them, which is good. So, a nice 2 nice classes. That in this, this is an easily found PDF for everyone.
And it's also, I believe it also mentions both there and perhaps in the player's guide where it introduced because the player's guide mentions the wise women as well. That men there are men who have arcane talent. It's just that it's generally they're discouraged.
Yeah.
Kind of like in Dark Elf Society, having male priests. Same difference.
Yeah. It's a very kind of it's a weird thing where the society seems very patriarchal, yet the magic and you have the deferral to these wise women.
But this is kind of cool when you build in these contradictions and stuff in it. Yep.
So here's some adventure hooks. Agents of Ayus, a fleet of 5 rebel Rhennee barges fly the flag of Ayus, at least in secret. These pirates ply their perfidious trade along the coast of the Shieldlands. And slave traders. Now this goes right into the slavers reference that the Rhennee are an ally with the slavers.
Yeah.
So that is.
And
there.
You can certainly see you can think of historical precedent for people selling out their own.
Yep.
Individuals selling out their own people.
They can, and especially selling out other people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even within their own
there might
group.
There might be Rhennee who simply regard others as, and you can have, if you want to label them as neutral evil or something evil, then.
Because you can imagine, Anna, we were talking about evil and alignment and people doing stuff on the down low.
Yeah.
Imagine that you have a Rhennee who is basically raiding other clans and selling them off to the slavers.
Yeah. Or raiding other normal folks in whatever.
Oh yeah,
simply,
but I'm saying,
you
notice that in Slavers it has that reference to raids that are being committed against Rhennee clans, and people being abducted from the Rhennee clans. What if it was some of their own people?
What if Rhennee, someone who's an outcast from Rhennee, who doesn't refuse to live by Rhennee cultural and society standards, outcasted from exiled from the community, excommunicated, so to speak,
or hasn't been discovered yet, even worse.
And then I can see them being pissed off and join others and do it. So meaning these are interesting plot points that you can use.
This next one, if Troy's on, is going to love. Okay, because this last one is really interesting, and it's treasure hunters. The malicious Rhennee lord Valkyris Hearth has set his hands upon a map of the legendary Isles of Woe. So, and it talks about here. Shunk once used the power of the Codex of Infinite Planes, so we just talked about that with Malden on Sunday night, to raise the armies of its enemies and subjugate the entire region. The islands now lay somewhere beneath the surface of the Lake of Unknown Depths. Sages claim the isles predate the Iridian migration. So, whoever finds the isles also finds incalculable power. Lord Hearth already commands over 100 barges and counts 22 members of the Darker Guard, Dark Haggard, among however you pronounce it, among his personal enforcers. So there you go. So he's
There's
questing.
also
Yep, go
I was
ahead.
going to mention Joe Block on
Thank
his related to that with the Isles of Woe and stuff. There was a great Adventure Seed Joe Block posted on his YouTube channel involving the Rhennee, where some Rhennee had gone ships keep going missing, and it's causing distress. And if the adventurers decide to join up, or say one of them already has a tie, has been accepted into a Rhennee tribe or something like that, the plot twist, I guess this would be a spoiler, but Joe spoils it since it's an Adventure Seed, would be the idea that they've traveled back in time. There's some sort of disruption going on in the Isle of Woe and with the Codex, where there's actually a gate in time, and these Rhennee have actually been displaced in time, and the adventurers have to solve that mystery and hopefully get them back.
That's cool.
And I kind of like that idea too, because again, it plays with these ideas of dimensional stuff and time. And
Joe's always having fun little things like that.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning, I'm putting the links to my river maps in chat, so to speak. The first one is a 200 something megabyte size, so that might be a tricky
Get
download.
Right there, everyone.
The second one is much smaller in resolution, so it's the same map, so you can see the rivers and stuff. So I put them in there so you can see the
Because fellas, the answer to that is I do not know, and they're not in the original 80 glossography, so I don't think that they were in the original campaign. I don't know why they would leave them out of the 80 the original 80 folio then.
Like I said, and this is purely speculation, you would have to ask Rob Kuntz or Jim Ward or one of the surviving players. But my assumption is that you had Romany type people or encounters in D&D, because it's such a trope, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then they
it kind of retroactively became, they expanded into the Rhennee, and then everything retroactively becomes or can become.
Whoever was writing on the 83 goes, you know what, we should kind of maybe change the name, and maybe Frodoval was talking with them at that time, and they go, Rhennee sounds like a good name. So, that could be what happened.
That's what I'm assuming happened. Yeah. And then, of course, Gygax fleshed it out somewhat in the particularly in the first Gord novel in Saga of Old City. And of course with the Atloy, and of course that's something that needs to be discussed too. There's a great piece at Cannon Fire. Again, this is non-canon, but it's useful, I think. That was done by, what's his name?
Maybe Sam
Gammerdung? Is that what the name was that he went by?
that was he was on Cannon Fire
Sam,
a lot some years
Sam
ago.
will find it and link it.
There's a great piece about them and their horses and an annual gathering
of the Atloy.
Yes, that I really like, and I think should be probably conceivably be better known than it is.
Because the Atloy predate the Rhennee, actually, don't they?
Yeah, well, you mean in terms of the game's chronology?
Yeah.
Like in universe chronology?
No, as that they were written down somewhere beforehand. Because they're mentioned.
No. The first time I saw them mentioned, I've seen them mentioned, was in Saga of Old City.
Okay.
Like they're not mentioned explicitly.
They're not in the 83. Okay, so 83 box set trumps it. Okay.
Yeah, they're not in the box set, and then they're in the first Gord novel.
Excellent. Thanks. Look at that. Sam did it. Just like
there you
that.
Go.
The Caltaran Horse Fair. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that Horse Fair article, I really
2005
really like, and I think that people could find some. First off, it's a great bit about, again, animals of Greyhawk.
Yeah.
Second, it ties nicely in with what we know of the Atloy from both the novel, the Saga of Old City, and from the Player's Guide.
Do you see the quote? It says, "Come join the Atloy, Rhennee, and the Halflings." Maybe that's why the Halflings don't like them.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh, thanks, Rob. Thank you so very much. So, that's a great one. Thank you for that link. That's awesome. We're digging deep, everyone, tonight. So this one you don't have to go this deep, and Norker deserves a shout out here. This just came out recently, Visions of Greyhawk Volume 2. We're going to go to page 14. It's a one-page article. And we're going to have an old school version of the Rhennee Wise Woman here for you that Norker made up just recently. And so others disparage Rhennee as a nation of godless criminals. While there is much truth in the assertion of criminality is judged by the standard of settled folk, the charge of impiety does not hold on a closer look at Rhennee culture. So the wise women teach our students a great mystery. The earth is dreamed by spirits, and both mortal races and the gods of other peoples are dreams within the dream. Interesting. So he goes into the depths here and all the wise woman abilities. I guarantee you will see one of these in my game as an NPC upcoming. So yeah, abilities are all set in OSR 1E2E. So you're good with all the abilities they have. Neat, really neat concept. Yep, Legend or Episode Unknown Deaths. We're trying, we're trying to go into as much that's out there that we know of, right? So and there's some tidbits I guarantee we're gonna miss, but that's the fun of these discussions is you can always come back. All right, I got one here. All right, this is page 24, but this is a great little side story, a sidebar. This is Expeditions to Ruins of Greyhawk.
Oh yeah.
Yes, by I just talked to him via just a little while ago. Eric Mona. I was just talking to him today. James Jacobs and Jason Pullman. So and there's a lot in here about the river quarter. It's really done out of all the quarters most in detail because the adventure takes place at most. And look, you got all these characters from Age of Worms, Gallants, that's Robbler, Tira, Kellic, Amelia. So this Amelia chick, lady, okay, is one of this is a great story, and it happened in my game. She's one of 3 wives. If we go to a new river quarter, and here's the river quarter done up. Is this Schley? It looks like a Schley map. I'm assuming
it's a Schley map.
Schley map. Okay.
Schley-based drawing on Dennis. Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of these areas, it's really tightly done here, and a lot of these areas are new and added, like Kellick's Tower here, right? So we get into this, and we come down here onto I said page 24. Page 24, the Low Seas Tavern. So this is another place where the Rhennee hang out in. So it says here, boisterous good cheer echo up. Inside is a 2-story tap room. Energetic fiddles and delicate finger cymbals give rhythm to the din of conversation and argument. Most of the patrons are Rhennee, the gypsy. See, they still use the word gypsy in here. Barge folk who ply the river. They should put traveler or something. Lakes of the Flannis, trading advice and information. So, merely tolerated in the river quarter, nearly absent in other districts of Rhennee appreciate Low Seas Tavern that belongs to them. All right. So, during this, one of Bill's characters, Trevin, came in, and it says right down here, and this is where part of the sub. There's so many subplots through here. So, talks about Janus Mazaros, lord of 11 Rhennee barges, and 47 men and women belong to his family, and he has 3 wives, right? Whom he treats a little better than property. The smartest of these, Amelia, spends a great time at the Green Dragon, where she might strike up a friendship with a PC who attracts her husband's wrath. Well, that exactly happened in the game, and it was awesome. Oh my gosh, it was fun.
Excellent.
Yeah, just little sidebars that can happen. So, pre-streaming, so I can't show you what happened in that, but it was great. So it was just an awesome time that we had. But just note that you can find some of these things throughout. And this is what I love, why I love Expeditions so much. There are so many sidebars and side quests. As you can see, they're just throughout these all over the place that you don't have to just linearly run through and do the going into Castle Greyhawk. So a good one. So, Anna, and Les, what other sidebars or ideas or things that you know of that exist about the Rhennee, or
I
points
think
of
we started
discussion?
starting to run low now a little bit.
Uh,
We're getting there. Yeah,
I
but
think there
Yep.
are ways. No, I think there are ways to flesh
Yeah.
them out by taking elements from different cultures, river-based cultures in the world.
Yeah.
Um, I know that
Mhm.
Christoph and I
Okay.
had years ago talked about he had mentioned uh I believe the river folk of like Bangladesh, for example, and
Yeah.
you
The
see it's
river.
very similar. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, go on.
Oh, that was yeah. You have the Bangladesh, and then you have the people in Iraq, and the
Yeah,
two
yeah,
rivers, Euphrates and Tigris. There you have the people that live on basically barges or swamplands there.
True.
So yeah, and that's the other question. Are all Rhennee sea nomads in that sense that they move around? Are some of them more like they put up big barges in one spot and stay there? Is that something we know, or do we have
Good question.
yeah.
I do have in my campaign. There have been a few. My players wound up consulting an aged Rene Wise woman
Yeah.
who
Makes
lived
sense.
in it. Who basically she and her sons were out collecting and stuff, but she had basically set up shop just out off of Divers.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so where there's the where the Rene dock off of Divers, there's a
Mhm.
little
Yeah.
territory there or island.
Yeah.
And
Because
the idea was she
oh,
had
sorry.
basically set up. She was so old,
Mhm.
even by OIS standards, right? And not through potions of longevity. She had just lived in a very very long life and lived just off the
Interesting.
city itself. And
Yeah.
basically, they just were too old to do much traveling, so they let their kids go out and
Yeah.
have their fun. But they had this enormous barge that they had
Mhm.
parked that was just incredibly ostentatious. Um, and yeah, basically she ran a fortune telling business on the side because, of course, the locals go for that. Um, so yeah, that's one thing. I would definitely look at some of those kinds of cultures.
Hmm?
Yeah.
I would look at some of the river folk of the UK, and
And
also look at some of the historical
I was going to
caravans.
say, yeah, and look. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say that there's look back to Latin America, Mexico,
Yes,
and stuff.
absolutely.
Before Mexico City, there were on the Lake Titicaca, I think, and others. So there are lake cultures and others back in the day. Look at ancient Egypt with Nile and when they flowed over, and look at some of the old types of barges and meaning the ancient Egypt built boats out of papyrus. That's
Okay.
interesting. You can think that they use like both the reeds and wood and stuff to build barges and barge-like boats, so to
Yeah,
speak. So there's a lot of interesting things. You can use some of these old ancient crafts that were used and boats that were built from primitive material and use that as inspiration if you want to construct your own Rhennee barges and various vessels. And not only barges, they might have big barges, but they also might have small boat to be swift to go ashore and back and so on. And then they have the big barges as bases, so to speak. So they might, and if you live on the water permanently, you will probably have a whole menagerie of different types of vessels, from big barges to tiny little personal crafts to go things to do all sorts of stuff, so to speak.
there's also one of the things that I would work in is I worked in, and this is a real world taboo, not only among certain groups of Romani, but among other cultures as
Yeah.
well, where there's a taboo about dining and drinking,
Mhm.
where if you're doing it among outsiders, you generally bring your own plate and utensils and cup
Oh wow.
because you don't want, and you want the stuff. You'll do your own cutting, thank you very much. You'll crack the bottle open, thank you very much,
Mhm.
because you don't want what you consume to be contaminated.
Yeah.
um you'll do your own cooking if you get the chance, right?
Especially if you don't have clerical magic that you can use in order to see if something is poisonous or not.
And not only that, but the idea that this is not of your people. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? There's
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
there's the
makes-
additional taboo.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no clerical healing, and the fact that to some extent this is
It's like in the
of
real
this
culture.
world.
Yeah, some people don't eat pig or pork, and some don't eat uh, beef. So you might have similar types of cultural saying that, oh, that's off the menu. We don't eat that.
And yeah, I'm agreeing. I would agree with what Sam is pointing out.
Yeah,
That it mentions the
absolutely.
description of Rhennee barges,
Yeah.
1 or 2 rig sails, sweeps, keel boards, carry dinghy, to go longboat.
Yep.
I would have that, if this makes sense, as the default. This is kind of the standard barge, but of course, as someone becomes more prosperous and has a larger family and more people under him, they might have a larger barge.
Yeah.
There might be
Yeah.
variance within that. I would use that as kind of a default.
Yeah, and the ancient Chinese vessels that were enormous that they used for when back in the day when the
Seafarers.
Chinese were seafarers, and then they stopped being seafarers, or at least on the major part, they stopped doing long distance exploration and stuff. And that's another one you can use for inspiration that were really huge for its time, so to speak. They were enormous for its time.
Lots of
Yep.
of ideas for them. I just think, you know, we always say that was it a mistake to link them, probably, but I just think that barge folk is just a cool concept. It
Yeah.
fits perfectly, especially around Greyhawk City, with
Yeah.
you know, with all the bizarrities going there with the rivers and all. And we don't need to get into that, but it's just like you got to have river folk. I mean, it just
Well, yeah, we have large lakes, meaning
Yeah.
Rhennee is an area that has huge bodies of water, which means that there's plenty of room, and also a plethora of enormous rivers that are Mississippi or bigger, so to speak. So there's plenty of room for them to maneuver, so to speak, in the setting, both figuratively and literally. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, whenever I hear the word junk vessel, maybe it's because when I grew up, I'm typing it in now. It reminds me of Hong Kong in the '70s, right?
Yeah.
I always Enter the Dragon. I always keep
But
those
that might
seeds.
be
Yeah,
the derogatory term that other seafarers in the Nerdiv and in Greyhawk,
Right.
they might say, "Oh, it's a Rhennee, it's a junk vessel because
Right.
it's not built from
but
us."
it actually is very buoyant. So
yeah, and the Rhennee might say have
Yeah.
this their word for others water vessels that they might say are junky or not up to. It's not built like ours or something. So yeah.
I think Doc Jock has raised a very important point.
yeah, they were
too.
not. They're not water people at all.
It's just the idea that Doc Jock, as Doc Jock notes, the idea that you have a largely nomadic land people.
Yep.
And of course, I love the idea that the in the box set it specifies that they were land based. Then it was just too much, and goes into this even more in the player's guide. It was just too much of a hassle on land for most of them with the water, with the monsters, and with the airity, and everything else. So they just took to the water, right?
Yeah, it made more sense.
So you have that combination of a land-based and a river-based and lake-based nomadic peoples, whereas most of the populations in Greyhawk, you know, it mentions in the course, I believe, the folio and in the box set that the Flanne were at one point nomadic, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
then you have the idea. Now you have the idea that that everything's kind of settled down with most of the populations. Most of the populations have moved towards agrarian at the very least, and certainly
Yeah.
even urban settings.
Yeah, and if you believe that the rovers of the barons are Flan, then you can have them as still being nomadic, so to speak, up there. And then you have the wolf nomads and the tiger nomads. So you have
But within
already,
the Flannes proper, like within the main territories that got discovered, you don't really have.
Exactly. Then they're all settled, almost all of them. So the Atloy or the Rhennee are the last remnants of the ones that aren't settled, so to speak.
And and I love the idea that these people who themselves, like, you know, that there's that tension, both because they turned up around, you know, what was it, 175 common year or whatever. And because they're wanderers and everybody else now has settled down, and there's automatically going to be some tension there.
Yeah, XD Candy,
Especially
you
with
can go back
Halflings.
to you can go back to the beginning after
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
done the show. You
Yeah.
can go back to the beginning because we talked about the where they come from. We started with that
Yep.
early
Yeah.
on, so to speak. So yeah.
So this was a discussion that we knew we were going to have to dig in deep and get
Oh,
some
yeah.
things, pull some
Yeah.
things out. And I admit, now we know why we delayed it for so many years. But
Yeah.
we would not have it anywhere near as much as we had if Les hadn't found it all,
Exactly. So yeah.
which is always wonderful.
Yeah. So
So-
hopefully we've given you some ideas, some points to look into, and some inspiration to use Rhennee in your campaigns.
95% of the published source adventures, Falcon and this River Rats, it's all right around Greyhawk City with them. Just that's where it is. Some of the slavers maybe outside, but it's mostly all right in that area of Greyhawk
But
City.
it's a lot of
Greyhawk
the
divers,
published
yeah.
a lot of the
Divers, you're
published things for Greyhawk are set, especially old modules are set in Greyhawk. It's the source books during the later era that they expand and covered more of the setting, so to speak.
And
So-
I do think that if memory serves, don't hold me to this, but I believe that the Rhennee also come up in a few bits of the Fried at Tri-Store or whatever.
Oh, really? Way up there in
I
the
think so.
in the 10?
I think so. Well, the Theocracy, yeah. The
Oh, that's
Theocracy
pale.
of the
That's
Pale.
pale. I'm sorry.
I believe they're mentioned up there as well.
Yeah.
In that adventure, if you can find that adventure from
Yeah.
it was
Polls and sales, Michael.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting question. When you're out and about on Main Lake, then sales will be
But
the
in other
obvious
words, it's
because
poles.
most barges will be so big that they will probably be too big to use oars. But
I want to
the
say
other-
it's Trouble
yeah.
at Tri-Store. Let me double check that.
But then when you get really close to shore, so to speak, if you hug the shorelines, then you can use poles and shove it against the bottom, and that means that then you get much more. So poles and as a secondary when the depth permits, so to speak, and then you use sails on the larger when you're out and about, and then you probably have some sort of steering rudder or some sort of keel, and then some rudders and oars or something, so you can use sails to power, and then you can use some sort of steering as well, so to speak.
So,
Yeah.
great discussion, Anna and Les. Thank you so very much
Yeah.
for this. I want to spend like the 5 quick minutes because going
Yeah.
over something, if you
Please,
don't
yeah.
mind. I'll show some pictures from Paige. How's that sound? All right, just to show you what you all missed, and if you weren't there, Michael, I don't know if I have you any pictures. I probably do. So let's just throw out a couple things. So,
Oh yeah, from
Yep. Me, Chetman, and me. Here you go.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So, myself, Joe Block, Greg Gillespie, and I forget the other gentleman holding the mic here. Greg Gillespie will be on a Gabbin after the fundraiser.
Okay.
This one I got drafted into. It's like late it's Friday night. It's late. I come back after eating dinner, and I'm like, I'm gonna wander around. And Ron goes, Can you just hop in on this seminar? I'm like, all right. So
He gave you like 5 minutes. Did he tell you what the seminar was about before
No.
you sat down?
no, but this is one about publishing.
Oh,
So
okay.
all these other 3 have publishing companies. I'm like, well, I just use people. So
Yeah.
it was that one was funny.
That's kind of funny. Yeah.
Les, you still looking for stuff or?
Yeah, I was just going to mention Fried at Tri-Store, it turns out.
Yeah.
Same author as River Rats. So
Oh, wow! I
figures
did not
that they
know
would
that.
have-
Oh,
figures that they would make an appearance.
Flat Peter, you were there. That's awesome to hear. So, this couple was looking. Came to my. So you want to live stream your RPG game? So
Okay,
had
cool.
I helped
Yeah.
them out, which was cool. So that was the first day. That's the one I ran back. I ran 2 of them because I messed the time up. I was there an hour
Oh,
early,
so
and I did.
Man.
I streamed it
Oh, so you had
twice.
to run it twice. Oh, that's why it was twice. I only watched once. I wonder what. Okay, now
Michael, you have the
explain it.
business card. Can you copy it and put it in my Discord, please? I got to reach out to them. Okay, I really would appreciate that if you would do that. I'm glad you're still on here. Saturday morning. This is Horror in the Hools. And I want to tell you, I wish Carlos was on. He'd love this.
Yeah.
So thank you. So this gentleman right here, I think Kenneth, Anna, 2019. Carlos meets me at Gen Con, if you remember, and we're going to play test Horror in the Rules. I'm
Yeah.
going to run the first part. He's going to run the second part, and we're going to take a little break in between. It's going to be a 10-hour long day, right, of gaming.
Yeah, I remember because you went to the booth and said hi to me in between. Or stuff
Yeah,
like
and then
that happened.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
He played in it.
Both.
He played in that
the whole
one
thing.
in 2019, and he saw it.
Oh, that's
logged
so
it.
cool.
He saw it. He played with a friend. He's like, "Oh, I wonder if that's." And he's like, "Oh my God, you made a published module out of this and all." Yeah, so he didn't even know. So that was
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah. So
Wow.
him and his wife. Yeah, and
Yeah,
they
awesome.
also do work for this group. They also do work for this group here, which Eric Mona is associated with. Shoot! I got too many pictures. The order of the frick. I'm sorry. I'm looking for it and I can't find it. Oh, I know it's in here. Oh, here it is. The Order of the Amber Die, which is a group that does Pathfinder gaming.
Yeah, I've heard about
Yeah,
them. Yep.
yep, and they were there. So, and they actually
Yep.
live in South Jersey. They live in he lives in Maple
cool.
Shade. So,
Yep.
and that's Adam. He lives in Maple Shade.
I
so.
heard about them at some PaisaCon I was at
Yep.
some years ago. Yep.
So let's see who else we got here. Let me go here to yeah, I even have signs. Joe Bach.
Greyhawk.
Joe Bach,
awesome.
not Joe Block.
Yep.
So there you go. Yes, so the seminar's coming, and let's see if we have. That's I look too heavy in that picture, so I'm not showing you that one. That one's okay too. I know I'm being.
Oh, it's your prerogative.
Not
You're
that
the
one
one
there.
showing
I got
us
so
pictures.
many pictures now. So.
Yeah.
Here we go. There we go. So here's the group here. We're talking. We showed all these. So I want to show everyone this. Thanks to Troy. If you did not see this on the stream, I want to show you right now what
You
Troy
have a
did.
whole stack of stuff
What Troy
there.
did.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, second looks felt. Yeah, I got So Troy did these the day before as I was talking on stream. So here are both of the Beyond the Flannis books, bound.
Oh.
Right. Grey Grimoire, bound.
Oh.
Complete.
Awesome.
Visions of 1 and 2, bound. No, none of you are getting these. So there you go. I have. Yes. I need these for.
And they're ring bound.
Yeah, they were, because that's all they could do. I mean, literally, he did it. He went over to a printer and did it. After I talked to him, it was like 3-4 o'clock on the stream, and they had him for the next morning because he showed up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, Troy, no giveaway for those. But yeah, thank you so very much for doing that. So a couple other quick pictures, and then we'll do shout outs here. But just it was I'm gonna say it was way better than I. It was way better than I thought. I really there was more people there. It was the only thing was there was no food right inside, but yeah, there's me prepping hools. I forgot my underlay. It's the only thing I forgot, but no one cared. So that was good.
Hopefully they got some food trucks there next year.
Yeah, hopefully they got some food trucks here.
Yep.
Big battle there, and so fun things going on. Yeah, with Undead.
Oh yeah, that's a portable travel kit.
That's my travel kit of hool stuff. That stuff is getting old and raggy.
Yeah, you need to talk to Bill about making new ones. Yeah.
I did not take. Oh man, yeah, I did not take a lot of pictures outside. Most of these Alex was taking.
Designate a player to take pictures or something.
Yeah, well, Antiquus was there taking the pictures. So most of the pictures he's taking as we were going. So it was just a good time. There was one where they're all cheering. Here's. Yeah. And then this dude here, I forget his name, was it Brian? He fumbled like 7 times. 7. I mean, it was just all. I mean, his character, he was playing Erebus, the dwarf fighter thief, and fumble. So, but there we go. So
were there any spectacular fumbles from him?
There was there was some there were no critical hit friends or anything like that, but there was double damage. There was a lot of them were shooting into melee combat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they were hitting each other.
Love that.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on. So that was a fun time. So yeah, shout! You guys are terrible. Just doing all that. So that's it'll be back next year on like the third weekend, and I think that's a Martin Luther King weekend. So they'll get an extra day out of it. I think that was the idea behind it. Let me see if there's any others. Yeah, there's Joe and I just talking about stuff. Look, I got Casey's book in my hand. Believe that? I got Casey's stinking
look
Bandit
at that.
Kingdom book in my
Yeah.
hand, talking about
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, and
That
all
was a great. I was going to say that was a great little seminar that you and Joe did.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
Mhm.
and
It
the
was
streaming
good.
equipment's behind here on this table.
And
Look,
it worked really well. We could
Okay.
hear everything, so it was good.
yeah.
Yep.
So there you go. And this is the gentleman behind. This is the guy who told me
Oh,
basically
the one
the
you
wrong time.
Yeah. mhm.
The day before.
Yeah.
So I did 4 seminars, DM'd, and wandered about and had a good time. So definitely no complaints. There were some great vendors there. I didn't really buy much, but yeah, that's it for picks, I think. So just note. There's this. I think his name was Jared. I think his name was here. This guy here, his wife. There's this new weird cult. It's not a cult. So Joe Block and Alex and I are at the bar Friday night hanging out, and he comes over and I start talking to him. He wasn't signed up for the game, but he was so intrigued. I just hey, here I'll give you a 7th. I'll jump you in. His wife is with these 2 other guys, and one of them was a vendor. They are numismatists or whatever of dice.
Numismatist?
Like
Oh,
the
nice.
coin collector, stamp collector
so
version
the
of
dice collectors. Okay.
So they are talking about literally every version of every Menser dice, Mulvey box dice.
Oh wow.
I mean, it is like a science now, and like the
Yeah.
nuances and differences. And he thinks it's ridiculous, right? So, but he lets his wife go at it. So
no, but it's kind of cool. I can understand that. It's not for me, but I can understand that other people can be interested. It's like stamps or
absolutely.
whatever.
But
Yeah.
they were like, I was shocked how
Yeah.
like it was like
Yeah.
gold to them. So I made
Why-
him laugh.
yeah.
He took me over to the table, and I was drinking, right? So I'm there, and the one guy goes and shows me this orange six-sided die from like the Mulvey box set. And he's like, "Well, look, I'm trying to get this off this guy. He just won't let me buy it. I need this to finish
Oh,
my
I think it
set."
was that you have to.
And he
pay
goes,
more.
"There's only
Yeah.
30 of these in existence." And so I look at him and I go, "Well, who the hell has the other 29?" And he starts laughing his ass off. When
And
I
you probably
asked
had
him
like
that
25
question.
of them or something.
And the one guy goes, "Well, I know this guy who has 8 of them." I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" So like, yeah, so dice is like the new gold standard.
Okay, well then we might have some treasure in our dice.
Looking
boards
through your
then.
old dice, everyone,
Yeah,
and trust
because
me.
yeah, I wouldn't understand.
Bring it to
it because-
Page next year.
Yeah, because I
Oh
have
my
lots
gosh.
of old dice that have been sitting for 40 years that I
Oh.
never ever use. That might be some
Yeah,
gold in there.
craziness.
Yeah.
Craziness there. So yeah. So Les, what's going on with you, man? Thanks for humoring me there as I went over what happened at Page.
Hey, no problem. Matter of fact, I appreciate that. Not having been to the con, not
Yep.
having been able to make it. There's nothing I love more than seeing this and but being able to put faces to names and so forth.
Yeah.
Like I noticed, Michael from Frog God was in the crowd and with his kids during your seminar. And
oh, yeah.
That was great.
And Michael gave me also a whole bunch of giveaways for streams and for the fundraiser. Okay.
Well done, Michael.
Including this, everyone. This is for to give because there's not many of them. Mine. The Monstrosities book.
Yeah, which is
all right.
great.
That is one for the fundraiser. So there. All right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
No, man. Monstrosities is a great book. Let me wholeheartedly endorse that wonderful volume.
It lives up to its name, really.
Exactly.
Really well.
Absolutely, it'll be someone will win that as a giveaway gift and be very happy. So yeah, absolutely.
But
Choice.
let's see.
Good.
Stuff I'm doing. I'm still cranking along. There were a few sidekicks on some stuff, on some articles that I'm working on for various and sundry Greyhawk fan publications. Also, this upcoming Monday, as I mentioned previously, I'll be the guest on Wiley and Matthew's podcast, Greycast, and we'll be discussing the Imperial Gothic. We'll be discussing that body of late Victorian works that influenced the pulps and influenced the wider science fiction, fantasy, and horror genres,
Oh, nice.
and pop culture in general. We'll be looking at stuff like Dracula and Jekyll and Hyde and H. Rider Haggard's adventure stories and some of the Victorian mummy tales and tales of cursed items. So we're going to be looking at that stuff, and that'll be setting up a spoiler for your audience here.
Oh.
The next Greyhawk the Greycast discussion on Appendix N and adjacent will be about the works of Robert E. Howard.
Oh,
cool.
So we're going to be discussing Conan,
catch up.
Hull, Solomon Kane, Cormac McCart, Brad McMorn, and some of the horror and adventure stories. So that'll be fun. I focused on now that we've got done with the overview stuff. We'll be focusing on single authors.
Cool.
And doing that, campaign is about to start up again. Most of my players are through their health and family issues and the holidays, and so we're going to be starting up with the fun times in the city in Spine Castle and the Bone March.
Nice.
Gods help them all. So yeah, that's pretty much what's up with me, man.
Les, man, you really stepped up on this one. I really appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, it was great.
Anna, what do you got going on?
Well, I'm working a lot on getting the stuff ready for GaryCon. So there are a lot of it is Shieldland Critwall stuff and some of the stuff I don't want to talk about too much yet, so to speak. But there will be a mapping live stream on Friday. That will some of it, and I will try and get my start to get more divested or invested into my Discord. But right now it's basically trying to cover as much ground before GaryCon as possible, because I want to have some really cool stuff to show. So that's the mainstay, so to speak. So yeah.
That's short, Anna.
Yep.
Wow. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Well, very, very nice. So tomorrow night, a brand new adventure, number 1028. I actually ran this one once, but it was number 89. I don't even remember who ran in it. So, and I've changed it a lot since then. And Anna, you put this on the map. This is this town of Braxton. Does anyone know where Braxton is?
It's on your map, but it's
no.
It's on all the maps now.
Yes, it is. Up here in Bracken. Here it is. Bracken. Way up here.
Okay.
There it is. It is on the map over here in the whole marshes. And this is from dungeon number 19. Okay, it's called By the Wayside. And it'll be a 2-weeker, and there it is. And as you can see, I've got a really awesome new underlay from Lithuania. From Cutting Edge Studios. I got two different ones, and this one is awesome looking. This is the one I wanted for the double header with Ed and with Nuclear Meat that didn't come in time. That's the one I wanted to use for the grounded ship, but I didn't get it in time, so now I'm using it here for this adventure By the Wayside. So yep, that'll be Thursday to start. There will be a gabbin on Sunday. I don't know. I don't know which one. I don't know what the discussion will be, but we'll get there on that. And then there'll be 4 streams next week, including our special game, this is Minions of the Sun, a prelude for the fundraiser event on February 3rd, Saturday, February 3rd. Those schedules are coming together, but not 1,000% finalized yet, everyone. I do have openings still, and we may have some open slots at this point. I don't, just had a couple people who couldn't do it last second or last minute. So just here, I'm going to go over this real quick, just so you can see where I have gaps. Thursday night is me with my guys at 7:30. If Phoenixie's following me, that's 11. So that's a new one. We never had anyone in that spot before. That starts it off Thursday. All right. Friday, is I have no one in the 10 o'clock slot before, and Carlos had to drop due to a conflict, due to work. So I have Friday night, which is a huge huge. Could be a huge audience open. Now,
Mhm.
Gary Con channel may take that and move, but he hasn't finalized that yet. So I have 2 slots open on Friday right now, and thank you for that, Norker. On Saturday's pretty full unless Gary Con Live moves to that night spot. Tim's at 6 a.m. Gary Con Live at 10. Darling at 2 with a Slav Squad game. So I'm not DMing, which is awesome. The main event for me at 6, and then Prayers Rejects at 10. Okay, and that's Saturday night. And then on Sunday, I don't have a morning either. I don't have a 10 a.m. on here either. I got Stronghold and Guild Superior kind of running at the same time, unfortunately. Stronghold running at 2, and then Guild Superior at 3. I don't think it'll be a problem. And the Gavin wrap up at 7. So I have 10 o'clock slots on Friday and Sunday, and I got a 10 p.m. slot on Friday night open. So if you know of a channel that would be interested, let me know. Or if not, we'll run with what we have. It's okay. All right, so let's do the giveaway. I got some new stuff in from our great friend Patrick for Classic D&D reprints. So I got a whole pile again. Like I always have a pile. It keeps me young, I guess. Oh, pulling these all up. I got let's see. We got another Border Watch. We got another Scarlet Brotherhood. We got more treasures. We got another Fiend Folio. So we got a Raven's Rook still. We got plenty of stuff here. So just let me know. That's okay, Jeff. Thank you so very much. All right, let's see who wins, and then we'll have Reaper miniature giveaway tomorrow night. Let's see. Winner tonight is Jeff. That's funny. Oh my gosh, that's funny. That's all good, dude. We're all tired. So Scottish Jeff, the winner here. Jeff, let me know.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, just that's the way it goes sometimes. You're here and it's all good, and a regular community member. So just let me know, man. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
I have Deep Dwarven Delve from Leonard too. If you don't have that, L3, that's a real good one too. So just I10, I11, I have those. So we'll get with me, and then we'll keep this going. Les, thank you for everything as always, and Anna, thank you, and see you all tomorrow night, 7:30 start. Right, and then no game this weekend. I'm looking on 27th between the special game and the fundraiser. I'm probably gonna do a Saturday morning BattleTech game too.
Yeah.
On the 27th
Cool.
of but I know Rob's gonna be streaming all that time, so it's just gonna be an impromptu game. So all right. Anyone remember
Awesome.
Fiend folios that were print inverted? No, I don't. That I don't remember. So all right.
Must be worth a fortune too. Yep.
There's a lot of stuff worth a fortune, especially dice. So hoard
Yeah.
those dice.
Mhm.
Those dice that you never thought, that broke, and just because they can't reproduce them because the materials they use for them are illegal now to make anything with. I don't know, because they're hazardous to your health. Everything's hazardous to your health, all right? It's crazy. All right. See you all tomorrow.
Yep.
You got Raven's Rook? I got you. I got you there, Jeff. Sounds good. Sounds awesome. All right, we're gonna read into the cat. Good. All right, sound good.
I
See you all tomorrow. Set the rate up. Whew. Today was a long day. Not bitching, just stating facts. Always a long day. Manager, hit a. There we go. Couldn't find it. Alright, there we go. So hopefully everyone, everyone have a great night. We'll see you all tomorrow. Enjoy.
thanks
Yeah.
for listening and
Good
watching.
night.
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you all soon. 5, 4, 3,
Happy New Year.
2, 1. Yes,
Yeah.
Happy New Year to you all. See you soon. So it went. We're good.